What is happening out there, rotoscouts football fans? Finally getting around to a Saturday night kind of a show for the main slate. A little bit late, 8 o'clock start. We've done this before. Not new territory for us, of course, but would have been good to get things done a little earlier. But holidays in the way, a lot of turkey, a lot of good food in the way. Had a great time down at my parents' house over a couple of days. Hopefully you guys all had great Thanksgivings as well. Stephen B's out there in the crowd. Cujo Blue's here. What's going on, you guys? Good Thanksgivings? Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully everybody's going to be filling in around the edges in the next couple of minutes. I'm sure we've got a lot of people coming to hang out. Greg being Cohen's here. What's going on, Greg? Just getting rolling. Good Thanksgiving, bud? I know these guys were here. I'm not sure if they're still here. My count's always a little bit behind YouTube. So I'm just going to wait and hang out for a couple minutes. Tommy David Walker, what's going on, buddy? Happy holidays to you, too. That time of year, people putting up Christmas lights. Where do you guys come down on Christmas lights? Is it like right after Thanksgiving in your house? Where you grew up or where you live now? Like your household, whatever it is? You guys go for... Uh-oh, Greg got into an argument with his blowhard cousin. I don't even want to know about what. Unless it's something fun... If it's movies, pop culture, something like that, we can talk about it. If it's politics, if it's usual Thanksgiving argument stuff, I don't want to hear it. Regardless of which side it is. Seth's wife put them up today, the Christmas lights. All right. Yep, a lot of Christmas lights when I was driving back up with tonight's Tommy David Walker hanging the lights up tonight. All right. So a lot of people jumping in on the early bandwagon. I like that. Saw a bunch of them on the way back up, though. That's what I was going to say. Leaving my parents' house, driving back up here, just a ton of people in their neighborhood, and like driving up through the burbs in New Jersey, getting over to the Parkway. Oh, I live in Jersey, and I mentioned the Parkway. Drink. Just iced tea. Wouldn't it be awesome if this was just a big glass of like bourbon with ice that I was drinking? Drink a pint of that during the show. That's how we would get this show all the way to lock. If I was drinking pints of whiskey, pints of bourbon. Craig says the usual bullshit. The guy won't shut up. I know the type. I've had Thanksgivings like that. We all have. Everybody's got, people that they don't necessarily want to spend the holiday with all the time. We had some people like that years ago that I didn't necessarily get along great with at the dinner table. But, people that you also love and part of the family and everything, so... You find ways to get along or you just don't chat, right? As long as all you're saying is pass the gravy, things like that, you can get through. But yeah, I've been there, Greg. I know what you're saying. Few people here hanging out, so we've already had one mention of pretty interesting value play, Justin Watson. Justin Watson value day, Justin Watson day per Seth. I think that's a pretty good call. Cheap as hell on the DraftKings slate. That Kansas City stack is interesting on that slate, just because how cheap they are. Some different looks site to site. It's not the prettiest slate in the world, but I think there's some interesting playable spots. We'll get into just doing like the old overview here. To start us off, we'll start off talking about like Vegas, just the general look and feel of the slate. I like this one. Los Angeles, Arizona, 44.5 points close. The theme this week is outside of a couple of games, a lot of close spreads, a lot of home dogs, which generally should lead to some good, tight football games. Not necessarily high scoring, but maybe it'll be a fun week to watch at least, and then we can hope for some high scoring. Justin Watson over-under on DK is 31.5. Should crush that. Mamba's here. What's going on, Mamba? Beantown's here. What's going on, guys? Good Thanksgivings. We were talking just as the show was getting rolling. We were, you guys have good Thanksgivings out there, Mamba? Beantown? Demon Nat's here. What was the worst dish y'all had? Have to choose one. Boy. The worst thing I had over Thanksgiving was probably the delicious slice of apple pie that I had with a chunk of vanilla ice cream on it. Just because I prefer the crumbly top and they screwed up our order and we didn't get the crumbly top apple pie. Everything my mom actually made, my dad actually made was fantastic. I love it. And my strategy is just don't take portions of the things I don't like. So I had a lot of experience with this meal at this point. Talking about 44th Thanksgiving, 45th, however that math works. It's been a while. Had a few of these along the way. Had ravioli along with the turkey. All right. The name never would have given that away, Greg. Do you guys do the 7 fishes for Christmas? That's always big in that culture, as I understand it. Never done the 7 fishes meal though. As many Italians as I've been friends with my whole life, never been invited to a 7 fishes meal. I really like fish, so that would be. I think I'd get in on that. Mom is a much better person than all the rest of us. 10 fishes, even better. So Mama's awesome. That's great, buddy. That's really, really good of you. Mamba, as you guys can't see it, kudos to him. Dinner for the homeless in Chester and Philly for 150 families. That's pretty awesome, buddy. And now I'm just thinking of the end of the movie Dutch, where they're like in the shelter before they get back to the house. You guys ever see Dutch with Ed O'Neill? It's basically like a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, except it's Ed O'Neill bringing his new girlfriend's son back home. And like the kid doesn't like him, so on and so forth. They end up in a shelter on Thanksgiving, and that's just what that conjured in my head for some reason. Also, actual Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, actually. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Dutch was on Christmas. So I might have been wrong there. But Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, same thing happens. 6-hour dinner on Christmas Eve. Damn, that's not bad. We do the, in my family, as you guys may or may not know from baseball shows, my mom's Cuban. So the big tradition in our family is Cuban meal for Christmas Eve, which is awesome. Noche buena. We just do the pork and the rice and beans, and oh, it's so good. So that's our tradition. It's not quite 6 hours long. It takes about that long to make the meal, and everybody hangs out that long. But it doesn't take 6 hours like sitting down actually like eating. Big part for us is like the hanging out in the kitchen as the meal's being made, and like everybody's talking, and there's hors d'oeuvres and all of that stuff. That's a big in our family for Thanksgiving, Easter, and Christmas. Not that we really like Easter's a meal holiday, but it's not like we don't go to mass or anything like that. Not to judge anybody that does. That's up to you guys. But anyway, as we were saying, Tommy David Walker, fan of the Cuban food, love it. Throw that on the screen. If my mom's checking out the beginning of the show, she'll like to see that. Yeah. Yep, that roasted pork is so good. And my grandma's recipe for black beans, so good. It's not ropa vieja, Greg. What we do is just like the roast, the whole rack of roast pork. But you could certainly sub some ropa vieja in. I love ropa vieja. Cuban food is excellent. Yeah, ropa vieja has beef, I believe. Pretty sure it's pulled beef, like stringy kind of beef. Not stringy like bleh, but stringy like prepared. How much of Minshew is too much Minshew? Yeah, Seth, that's going to be an interesting one. We'll get there. Let me get actually started. Let's get actually rolling into this one. We got 10 people hanging out. A bunch of people are going to be catching up overnight with the late start, which is cool. What's up, Larry? I know Larry will be out there probably listening at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. He'll let us know in the Discord. But yeah, let's dive into this thing in the interest of time. Don't necessarily want to be here talking till 11:30. Shut up, Dennis. Dennis jumps in. Maybe you'll have to host a cooking stream sometime. Fair enough. I could. Not a great cook, but I can certainly do like a Slacker Stoners cooking show. I think that would actually be kind of fun. Did you ever really hurt yourself cooking? Worst time I ever hurt myself cooking, I just burnt like 2 years ago, like all the skin off my thumb. Drunk cooking. It wasn't even anything complicated. I was trying to, those little sausage patties, the frozen ones. I was trying to heat some of those up, and you have to put water in it. So there's a little thing of like hot water in there, and I went to be like fancy and flip them, and it just went scalding hot water all over my thumb. Ouch. I used to get burnt all the time. I worked in a pizza place, and just like the little arm burns, like reaching into the oven and stuff like that. But that's just a little like, doesn't quite hurt like melting all that skin off your thumb. That was a fun one. Anyway, so as I was saying a bunch of minutes ago, I do think it's going to be an interesting Sunday of football with all these close point spreads, all these home dogs. There's some decent totals, some semi-targetable games. It is kind of an ugly slate, though. I mean, that Giants-Patriots game is just deathly ugly. The Carolina-Tennessee game is not that much better. Cincinnati-Pittsburgh, I do think there's some value in this one, potentially, but I don't think it's an overall good game. Denver-Cleveland with a 36-point total, so there's a lot of ugliness on the board. But I do like this one. I think there's good value on both sides in this one. The Rams are kind of lighting up the board for potential offense. I think with Kyler Murray here, that this team on the Arizona team has enough to get by. Marquise Brown's questionable. That can make it Greg Dortch day again. He got a bunch of targets, 8 targets the last time out. He came up in the Discord, and it's definitely a possibility with Wilson out, especially if Hollywood doesn't go. I kind of like it if Hollywood does go. Maybe it gets a little bit neglected as a potential value play. This is the projection. This is a good projection for the price with Hollywood in. So that would only go up and gain attention if Hollywood doesn't play. So I kind of like it if he does as just a sneaky tournament play. I don't love this Falcons one. 42-point total's fine. 1-point spread, perfectly fine with did I do that the wrong way around? Usually I put the home team there. Oh, home team. New Orleans at Atlanta. I was looking at these. I do different sheets different ways, so it always takes me a second to jump back and forth between how this is set up, because normally I'll have, I won't have this column, so it'll just be home away, or team, whatever. Anyway, so I don't love that weird, weak Atlanta offense, even with the excellent skill players they have. I haven't liked Desmond Ridder most of the season, and I just, as we've talked about a bunch of times, don't like throwing a passing attack at this New Orleans pass defense. So that's not the greatest spot in the world for me, but maybe shares of Bijan as an individual, because they're not great against the run. Maybe shares of the tight ends. I could get behind a little bit of that. The Buffalo-Philly game, obvious target on both sides. Major potential in that one. 49-point total. Plenty of potential action. Buffalo going up against a Philly defense that is, good, not great, I would say. They were giving up a ton of passing yards for a little while there. So I think Josh Allen could have a day. He projects out great, top of the board QB-wise. Stephon Diggs could have a day. Looks fantastic on DraftKings. Gabe Davis looks really strong. There's a lot of weapons in the Buffalo attack. There's a lot of weapons on Philly's side. Not really selling anybody anything new there. Hate this game on both sides. Carolina, Tennessee. 37-point total. Tennessee favored by 4, but it's Tennessee. I don't actually mind shares of cheap Carolina defense just because Tennessee, I'm not that intimidated by. Tennessee defense against Carolina, I think, is perfectly fine. Don't really see much here at all for Carolina. No, not showing any value in Bryce Young today. We had a couple weeks where he popped, didn't quite get there for us in actuality, but not showing us anything in the projections this week. So hopefully don't have to worry about Bryce Young creeping in there. If I get a couple like Adam Thielen's, I'm all right with it, but not much in that one. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, like I said, I do think there's value here. Jake Browning starting for Cincinnati is going to screw up everything with that passing game. Trading my second-round pick for Jamar Chase in an effort to get into playoff position and potentially sneak through the playoffs. Probably not going to work out for me in a season-long league. But, say la vie. I do think Chase has upside. And oddly, the other side of this one, the Pittsburgh side, at least on DraftKings, they're very, very cheap in the passing game. So I think there's potential as a value play, as a tournament play, as bad as Pickett's been. He's got a few good skill players around him. I think there's potential there for a value play. Mixon's fine, Tyler Boyd even, Trenton Irwin. If you get anything out of Jake Browning, these guys could succeed. I don't know that I want to stack that many times, though. Cleveland, even going up against this Denver D, maybe I get to the running back split, the Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt situation. Maybe I use a little David Njoku. I just don't like this offense. I don't like this offense with Dorian Thompson-Robinson behind there. Amari Cooper, good in a vacuum, good in any given game sense, but hasn't really put up big numbers this year overall. It's a fairly skippable team in a bad game script. It's a close game. They're going up against a horrendous defense overall, but it is a defense that's twice now done well against the Chiefs. They had the terrible, terrible game against the Dolphins that completely screwed their numbers for the entire season, and they've had a couple other clunkers, but they're probably not as bad as this looks like. And this Cleveland team is not good on the offensive side of the ball. They are good on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't really like getting to Denver any much more than I do Cleveland. You get little bits and pieces of anything here. Javonte is cheap, but not, I don't know, not my favorite option. 4.1 yards per rush attempt allowed. It's all right. It's not 5.5. So the yards per rush attempt for the season is kind of why I'm maybe a little intrigued around Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt for the touchdown upside. They both project out fairly well. Seth says DeAndre Hopkins season. DTR is a sneaky QB play. Runs for 2 TDs. All right. That's an interesting call. Little Dorian Thompson-Robinson double touchdown on the ground. All right. Interesting. Beantown plays Jordan Poole for the first time and he gets scratch post lock. Yeah, I was saying it in Discord. Obviously, that sucks. I am fortunately well below, I think the field on FanDuel is at 38%. I'm at like 20 exactly, I think. Or I think I have 31 shares of them. So I'm a nose over 20%. So I'm happy to be below the field, but I'm annoyed that I have that much committed to a guy that I was saying, like, I hate this guy. Like, literally, as I was sorting lineups, I was like, I hate Jordan Poole. I wish I wasn't seeing him in here so much. And then toward the end, my last, 25 lineups, I just literally started skipping Jordan Poole lineups. So kind of worked out. Wish I'd done it more aggressively. But, yeah, that obviously being down, that sucks. A lot of people. Mama's get Terry talking about food and he forgets there's a football slate. Yeah, hey, look, I'm enthusiastic. It's Thanksgiving weekend. We're going into the holiday, the Christmas holiday season, the winter holiday season, whatever you want to call it, and a lot of good food coming. So, plus I had 3 Thanksgivings. You know how much leftovers I have in my fridge right now? I could have my own Thanksgiving. I could have all the people who are currently in here watching this chat. We could be just in person talking about this in my apartment, having a full Thanksgiving meal right now, just with the leftovers I've got in my fridge. It's ridiculous. I really like the Houston-Jacksonville game. I don't think that's a surprise. Love that it's a 1-point game. Love that it's a 47.5-point total. Like the quarterbacks on both sides. Like the output, the skill players on both sides. Had a good game out of Jacksonville last week, coming right back with them again. The Trevor Lawrence side, the Travis Etienne, a little bit of Calvin Ridley. On the Houston side, CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico, Singletary, Robert Woods, Dameon Pierce supposed to be back. There's a lot to work with in this game. Just up and down the board, value plays, all sorts of stuff in this game. So I like this one a lot. Think it's going to be popular, but we don't really sweat individual popularity for football. So, just differentiate your third wide receiver a little bit. You're fine. You can get over the top with some of these stacks if you want to. Indy came up early. Indy looks very, very good for value on FanDuel, where Gardner Minshew's only 5,100, and Jonathan Taylor's busting out through the top of the running back slate. So if you include him in the stack, it drives up their points per dollar, their overall point total. If you look at the stack as like a Minshew, Pittman, Downs, Pierce, you can keep it really, really cheap. That 4-man group is 19.9 on FanDuel, 25.2 on DraftKings. So you get a lot of points. Or excuse me, I had that the wrong way around. DraftKings, FanDuel, which makes sense. It's higher price. So it's 6,700 on FanDuel for Minshew, 5,100 on DraftKings. Again, gotta get these. I gotta start doing all these sheets in the same way, where it's DraftKings then FanDuel or vice versa. So we can show that here. Indy. Yeah, 5 FanDuel points 5th, value 1st. Points 5th, value 4th on DK. So yes, I think we are going to have a pretty meaty share of some Minshew, some Pittman, some Taylor. Definitely get some Downs and some Pierce in there. You've got Granson, you've got some Mo Cox potentially getting involved. It's not a big projection there, but a sneaky touchdown upside tight end. So yeah, definitely going to get to some Indy. Not that it's a good opportunity for the passing game, but not necessarily a rushing game. I think it's just Taylor on the back of touches and talent is again projecting at the top of the board. But Tampa's been decent against the run. Talked about the Jags on the other side, but again, just absolutely love this game. I'll definitely have shares of Mahomes, Pacheco, Kelsey, one of these receivers. But overall, I think Kadarius Toney's out, by the way. Ignore Toney there. I was trying to think. There was somebody when I was doing my notes that I noticed was out, and I think it was him. Unless that was an old note. Let me double check that, actually. Is Tony playing? Was I reading an old note that popped in front of me when I was putting together my my boxes here, or what? Tony. Come on. Get to the news here. Out. Yeah, he's out. All right. That's the guy I got to remember to scratch. And nobody's going to be upset about that. The issue with the Chiefs is that all these wide receivers suck. And we talked about that before their primetime game the other day, and then they went out and had a complete disaster of a primetime game wide receiver-wise. I think Rashee Rice continues to be the top target among the wideouts. I think he makes the most sense, but Justin Watson for $3,000 on DraftKings is incredibly intriguing. So I think we get there very, very easily. It's not the highest projected overall team, but I think we're going to have a bunch of the Chiefs. I just don't completely love them because Mahomes and Kelsey remain expensive. So it's not like you get tremendous value by going to that stack. And then we deal with a 42.5-point total and a 10-point spread against a Vegas team that they should really, really light up. I actually kind of really like Isaiah Pacheco as a standalone play at running back. So that's kind of how I'm viewing this one. Not completely by any means. I will, again, to reiterate, have plenty of KC, and we'll talk about it again. But I kind of like the Pacheco spot. LA on the other side of Arizona looks absolutely fantastic. 44.5-point total. 4 guys that project really well. The return of Kyron Williams. 18th and 26th ranked defense against the run and against the pass. Plenty of opportunity for LA. That said, I feel like we've seen this story before with LA and not necessarily succeeded with it this season. So buyer beware on that front, but that's not a reason to downgrade the opportunity here, going up against a defense that's given up plenty this year in a game that looks like it'll be competitive and hopefully will shoot out a little bit between 2 effective enough fantasy quarterbacks with good skill players on both sides. Happy to get to that game. Vegas. KC's defense is playing up as one of the top defenses of the week, which tells you most of what you need to know about Vegas. That said, 2 fantastic skill players. So I don't necessarily love grabbing tons and tons of shares of a popular defense when there's at least 1, let alone 2, like superstar caliber skill players on the other side. And these guys both, I mean, Devontae definitely does, and Josh Jacobs, at least on volume and skill and numbers over the last few years, absolutely does as well. Jacoby Myers is a very good second wide receiver to be working with. It's Aiden O'Connell. It's everything else about that team that we don't really love that much. To make KC's passing game viable, I do think they're going to need to hang in this game a little bit. I think Devontae and Josh Jacobs are good sources of run-back plays against your KC stacks, which I think would make a lot of sense because, again, Vegas will have to hang with KC to have KC truly hit a ceiling. Ramondre Stevenson in that Giants game, like a piece of that. Going up against that inept Giants defense. 30th ranked 4.8 yards per rush attempt. 25th ranked 7 yards per pass attempt. Sign me up for Ramondre Stevenson. Quarterback controversy going on in New England. We'll talk about this one. I've got Bailey Zappi. We don't know, at least as far as the last time I checked, we don't know who Bill Belichick's going to be using. I feel like he would have named Mac Jones. Let me double check, make sure we're not there yet. As of like 2 hours ago, it had not yet been announced. So I just don't think he's going to jerk around Mac Jones that much and then like put him in. I feel it just, you can flip a coin. Mac Jones came out of the game the last time they played. It was late in the 4th. There's no reason to leave him in necessarily. Not necessarily a sign, but they basically split snaps. There was initial reporting through the week that Mac Jones was leading in snaps, and then like later in the week it kind of caught up. I'm leaning Zappi, but either way, I don't think you're getting too much out of the Patriots passing game. Mac Jones has had a couple okay performances in his life. This Giants defense is awful. But he's also throwing the ball to Demario Douglas, Devontae Parker, who's banged up and questionable. It's a really weak passing offense overall. So I just kind of like Ramondre out of that one. On the New Orleans side, you can always grab some skill. Alvin Kamara, is a volume monster. Chris Olave had a lot of skill there. Rashid Shaheed is a deep threat. Taysom didn't have a great one last time, but has put up some monster fantasy scores from the tight end position. Typically through throwing the ball, running the ball, and catching the ball. You get the right week with a combination there, and that could be a biggie. A little bit of value in like the A.T. Perry's down board, Jawan Johnson even at the tight end position. Saquon, despite what Tommy DeVito did last time out, don't fall into that trap. That is not going to happen again. I know I said don't stack them last week. I stand by that. Going in, that should not have been played, and it wasn't played. I mean, not a lot of people had Tommy DeVito shares. There is nothing to see here. It's a 34-point total anyway. Giants are 3.5-point dogs at home to the New England Patriots, who are also awful. That's how bad this team is right now. Saquon's the piece that I'll play. I'll have some Saquon. I might maybe take a few shares of Wan'Dale at the top, maybe if I need a very cheap wide receiver at Jalen Hyatt, but it's just a tournament dart throw, bearing in mind who's throwing them the ball. He got Darius Slayton killed last week, so he's probably not going to play. I don't like the downboard options in the tight end, Sterling Shepard, Isaiah Hodgins. These guys just become touchdown-dependent darts. Any one of them, if you want a super cheap wide receiver for one lineup out of your 150, sure, drop them in. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But overall, it's not something to get carried away with. It's not something to use a lot of. Philly, absolute monsters on this team. Jalen Hurts, just multiple touchdowns every week, in the air, on the ground. They pick them up, they throw them in. A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Devonta Smith, awesome trio of skill players. And then everybody else on the team is like, I don't really want that much Kenny Gainwell. He's very cheap. He's got an okay-ish projection. Julio, 3,300, 5,000 is fine to throw in there. You got to get the touchdown out of him. Jack Stoll should have a little bit more of the tight end job. Calcaterra's banged up. Okwuegbunam, I probably should give Alberto a little bit more of a projection here. But it's probably Jack Stoll's job overall here. OZ is just like a tournament dart throw. But it's really about these four players, which is not anything new to anybody here. All right, Pittsburgh, like I was saying, problematic value pricing for Pittsburgh. Third on the DK board by points per dollar, 18th by points. But that stack, if you just look at the pass catchers, costs 17.3. Look at the prices for all these others. Your average price is 23.3. 17.3 is pretty significant savings on that DraftKings slate. It's not available on FanDuel. I actually still like the stack a little bit on FanDuel, but it's not because it's showing good value. I just think there's a little opportunity there for them for whatever reason. So I think it's playable over there, but on DraftKings it looks really solid. 4,800 for Pickett, 49 for Deontay, 47 for George Pickens, and then the absolute banger, Pat Freiermuth for 29. Absolutely, yes. Pat Freiermuth on his own for 29 at the tight end position, totally fine to play, and I do think this is a stackable team for value. Kenny Pickett +1 of any one of those guys, especially Freiermuth, gets you to a whole hell of a lot in terms of skill players. You grab those two guys, and then like Diggs and A.J. Brown against each other from that Philly game, and then like two pieces of the Jacksonville game, and you're off and running with lineups. Seth says don't play Freiermuth. Why not? Why not, Seth? Beantown likes the Edwards-Helaire pivot with McKinnon out. I can see that. Edwards-Helaire hasn't done much this year, but with McKinnon out, yeah, there's probably touches there for him. Hard to get away from Minshew, says Beantown. Agreed. Greg helped me out with the Tony thing being out. I want to know why Seth doesn't like Freiermuth. Did I miss something? Or is Seth just giving us some Seth takes? Which are always welcome here. Oh, god damn. How do you spell Freiermuth? Pat FR, that's how you spell it. No injury designation, no nothing like that. I think Seth just doesn't like him. He's a tight end. I'm not worried about that. $12 routes run on 31 snaps. Fine with that. His first 4 weeks of the season was 24, 25, 22, and 19. So figure first week back from a 5-week injury, giving him limited routes, sure. I have no issues going to Freiermuth here, especially at that price. Targeted just once. If that repeats, I'll be concerned about it going into week 13, put it that way. Joker, can we stop with the paw licking behind me over there? All I'm hearing is in my ear. Tampa, they're always like moderately playable. Rachaad White got downgraded to questionable. That would be a big ding to that stack. I do think this is a playable 4-man group. I really like Rachaad White's overall volume, his volume in the passing game most weeks. But if he doesn't go, that downgrades that to me, and I just don't really trust Baker Mayfield all that much to get there. But if you're playing the Indy side, I do think you can grab some skill players coming back the other way, and I do think Tampa's playable enough. It's not like Indy's defense is good. It's a 45.5-point total, 2.5-point spread. So there should be some back and forth here. It's really the Baker Mayfield of it that I don't love, but he projects out all right. He's projecting better than Will Levis and Kenny Pickett by a little bit. He's projecting definitely better than Tommy DeVito, who's just getting 12 points from me out of my generosity of my heart. I didn't bother building a back-end projection for Tommy DeVito. I don't see why not, Craig. Njoku? Njoku's always good. Let me let me temper that. That is not the right way to say that. But I do think there's supportable volume for David Njoku. Obviously, saw a monster last time out, and is capable of getting in the end zone and catches a lot of what's thrown to him. So I do like Njoku just in a vacuum at the tight end position. He's a guy I tend to fall to a lot. What's his price? $41.57. Hunter Henry. Oh, it's on FanDuel. Going from Hunter Henry to Njoku. What's Henry's price? 52. And Njoku was what? 57 to find 500 more. Who are you using at defense, Greg? I think that's probably a pivot worth making. What is it? A 7.1 and a... Not Derek. Yeah, I mean, you're gaining 2-ish fantasy points in just, raw projection there. Probably a little bit better of a touchdown upside. I would say first check would be my defense. What can I do taking my defense down to find $500? If you can't do it at a defense, then maybe see if there's a reasonable wide receiver running back pivot that you can make. But yeah, I think that would be worth trying to find the 500 to make that change. As much as I don't like that Cleveland offense overall, I think Njoku is a good tight end, and I do like going to tight ends with young quarterbacks a lot of the time. Just a little bit of additional volume, safety valve, and all of that. And Njoku's a big target and a target in the red zone, so I think there's definitely some viability there. Not to spoil it, but targets in the red zone in 5 straight weeks. Multiple targets in the red zone in 4 of those 5 weeks. Only 1 target in the red zone last week. But yeah, that's worth doing. And then the bottom of the board, the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins. These two, at the very least, on their own, always happy to get to those guys. I don't love the stack. That Carolina defense is not very good. So I think it's playable, but not overly appealing. Not a priority. Let's grab these quarterbacks. Just realized I forgot to tee up the positions here. Bear with me while I set up this part of the board real quick. What are we sorted by? It's really only that I want to use, but I think those will be quick. Yeah, like I said, Beantown points out Denver's D has been decent the past few weeks. 5 sacks, 7 fumbles, 5 picks. Yeah, the picks especially can be pretty variable, but the sacks are always nice to see. And like I was talking about at the beginning, it was just, they took such a beating in that Miami game that it just had a major impact on their numbers for, going through the season. It was basically like 3 games of yardage in one game. So they're just going to look bad in a lot of rankings. But they're not as bad as it looks. And yeah, if there's a little bit of scoring value there, then by all means. I believe they're actually the defense in my placeholder lineup at the moment. Indeed they are. Denver D. Don't know if you can see that. So yep, I think the Denver D is playable at worst. I'll play anybody on the defensive side, really. Defense is a value position for me. If I need to drop to the bottom defense just to get low salary, I will. Just because of how variable interceptions can be, how variable pick sixes can be. Or if you're the Dallas Cowboys and whatever that guy's name is, how specific pick sixes can be this year. That's ridiculous. What does he have, 5? But yeah, overall, I'm happy to take discounts at defense and just play it as a value position. Go pass catchers here, and we'll start breaking this down a little bit more specifically. Did I copy a line that didn't have anything in it? That's always helpful. Oh, come on. All right. Let's dig in. Hit that like and subscribe button and all that fun stuff, by the way. Make sure you're in the Discord. Make sure you're checking out rotoscouts.com, all the projections, the rankings. Oh, by the way, if anything breaks in the NBA, let me know. I know I'm not the best at keeping an eye on chat, but if I could change anything for NBA, the LeBron and AD news was the one I was really sweating. I didn't want to have to change it, especially with how messy that rotation is. Oh, Jalen Johnson came out of the game too? So we've lost a 30% owned Jordan Poole and a 30+% owned Jalen. Wow, significant. All right, cool. Anybody else? I just want to make sure I don't need to update projections. If that LA rotation went sideways, that was going to be a problem for this show, but knock on wood, everything was fine. And we're only on these guys. That's why it's not sorted right. I don't want to start here. Let's work our way up to that one. We'll start on the other side. Also an interesting game. We're working backward this week. Just because we always end on such like an anticlimactic note. This one would have been all right. But we would have also slogged through Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, which does have stuff to talk about. These are not my favorite games here. Let's work backward toward that Buffalo, Philly. Although that takes us through Cleveland, Denver. Maybe we'll hop around. Let's start with Tampa and Indy. If we hop around, I'm definitely going to forget a game, though. Rachaad White being banged up, like I was talking about before, really puts a damper on that stack for me. Overall, though, I mean, DK points ranked 8th. 13th ranked by value. FanDuel 9th and 9th. So they're in play. A lot of that is supported just by good projections from Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and okay Baker Mayfield projection. Going up against a defense that ranks 14th against the run, 4.1 yards per rush attempt, 6.6 yards per pass attempt, ranks 19th. You're at 7 starting for Utah. Shit. That's probably something I should update. It's the quickest way I can take a look at that. Bear with me one sec, guys. This is all for the site, so people are potentially not here watching this and waiting on projections update on the site. So let me just take a quick look. I know I gave them some minutes, but I didn't give them starters minutes. Where are you, Yurt? Ugh, yeah, that's not good. And then THT, I'll just trade. I guess. 14 last time, 22 last 3 minutes. Go like this. Might just be like token start for your 7, and it still ends up as just a little. Like I had him at I think it was 16 or 18. I can kick them up into the mid-20s. I think that's probably enough. I know you guys can't see the NBA projection that I'm looking at, but give me 1 second. Just got to upload it to the site. Anything else crazy change that I need to know? Always the most fun part of the show, letting me update stuff. Sadiq Bey started the second half for injured Jalen Johnson. Haywood Highsmith won't return. That's irrelevant. Kessler playing off the bench. Jalen, All right. That's what I have for Kessler. Welcome to the Guy Changes NBA Minutes on an NFL Show stream. So let me see what I got for Kessler. I take like that. That's weird. All right. I think that'll fly. And just get this uploaded. Talk amongst yourselves. Just going to take 1 minute here just to get this. I got to just copy paste a few columns across and then click the little upload button to get it up to the site. rotoscouts.com, the home of your free projections for football, basketball, which is a giant pain in the ass, and everything else fantasy-wise. Be really nice to end the show later on. I have a big lead in basketball and then settle in to watch the end of the last basketball game. That'd be a nice way to spend my break. I say break because, as you guys probably know, Saturday nights I tend to be up all night building lineups, simming, building out lineups, running lineups through the thing to see what we can get to groups-wise. Going to take a different tack, I think, tonight with the sims. I was thinking about it in the shower this morning, actually. And I think it would be interesting to do a run if I've got all the time, overnight. Might not even be the sims that I end up using to run things to choose my lineups from in the end. But I was thinking that it might be interesting to create pools of where only one quarterback is available, so that I force the Ace Mind sim to create, and I don't even know if it's possible or how many, what the count would be, but to create like maximums of just that quarterback lineups, and then rank out, sim those against each other, and see the best versions of each quarterback's individual potential lineups against one another, and then grab like the top 100 CJ Strouds, the top 100 Gardner Minshew's, the top 100 Patrick Mahomes, and so on and so forth, and then run those against each other in a regular sim against the entire pool. So you're already working with like the top cut. I do that a lot where I'm just taking the top cut of just a normal pool of lineups. But I've never done it where I'm just doing that for each individual guy. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm curious to find out. I'm going to run that later on. Thanks, Dan. I thought that was interesting. Oh, done starting? I wish I had seen that a second ago. All right, that might require another half second here. Shit, yeah, that is. All right. I didn't have done for anything, really. All right. Where am I going to get another, like, 20 minutes? Sense. Fun times here on the NFL show. I wish I'd seen that Chris Dunn note a half a minute sooner while I was still uploading the other stuff. Let me just see here. I'm just gonna. What are they doing? When in doubt, steal. I don't have time to actually think this through. I don't want to make you guys sit here and look at this for any longer than you have to. That doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, this game's starting in like, how long? Half. All right. Hang in there, guys. See, I like that at 28. If he's starting. Yes, 23. That's the one. That's who I had too high. I knew there was somebody in here. That's what I needed help with. I knew there was somebody I had too high. I had Agbaji way too high. And then THT, I can... Nope, I got him at 18. Where can I find 5 more minutes? Like that, I guess. And then like this. Ugh, I don't like this at all, but it's done. Everybody that should have minutes is going to have minutes. That's the important thing. Just make sure of the usage, the rates. Technically, I should be in here tweaking some of these rates a little bit. Again, I know you guys can't see this. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. Yeah, that's too high. I'm not giving him more than a point a minute, not in a starting role. That looks good. 0.94. Sounds right. That's fine, that's fine. Alright, I think we're okay. Alright. Now tell me what else has changed. Alright. Last time for sure. Actually uploading this, and then we'll be good to go. That one. A smarter person would have this on a separate tab where it just collected all this for one copy paste. Instead, I have to grab it like 7 times from different columns. All these things that I talk about that I'm like, yeah, at some point I'll put that together. At some point I'll put that together. Would really come in handy if I actually went and did it. Alright. Save you. Get to the site. Import. This is the fun that I go through when these things change. And then you go through all this, you finally click this little import and upload button, and then everything goes completely haywire with some other play that you weren't even thinking about. Happens every time. Hopefully not this time. 84. Did I? If I have to do this again, I'm going to be... Don't beep at me. Just tell me if I got it right. Yeah, we're good. All right. And I need to update this note. Okay. I think we're back. That was 10 minutes we could have used better. See, this is why... That's the first time it's really created a conflict during one of the shows, but this is why it would be better to not have to do these just me. So done. Tekio Collins, you're at 7. All right. Okay, we're back. What's up, guys? The free stream is being interrupted by the free projections being updated. Anyone bothered by it needs to relax, says Dennis. Fair enough, buddy. I like that call. Good call. Doesn't look like we lost too many people during that, but all right, let's dig back in here. So where the hell were we? I was starting with Rachaad White, literally the first talking point. Awesome. Last time out, 7 targets. Just love the volume in the passing game, as I said. Carried the ball 9 times, 30 yards, scored a touchdown. Caught 6 of the 7 for 28 yards. If he plays, I like the Tampa stack a lot more. You do have high-volume wide receiver targets in Mike Evans. 10 targets in Week 10, 12 targets in Week 11. Chris Godwin, 6 targets Weeks 9 and 10, 7 targets in Week 11. Hasn't scored a touchdown since Week 8. Evans has touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 games. If I'm going to one of those guys over the other one, it's probably Mike Evans. Projects that way. The price is, indicates that he's the better play, of course. But there's plenty of room for Chris Godwin in my book if I'm going to Tampa stacks. Had a 12-target game back in Week 7. Has tons and tons of upside any given week. Caught 8 of 11 for 114 yards in Week 4. That was a week where Mike Evans was targeted just 3 times. Caught them all for 40 yards. So there are Chris Godwin weeks, there are Mike Evans weeks, but I'll take my shots for some Godwin shares. I do think that the Bucs D is a sneaky defense, maybe a little bit playable. It's not like they project well, but they've been decent enough. 5th against the run, 3.7 yards per rush attempt. It's that pass defense. But again, pass defense, especially when you're going up against a Gardner Minshew level quarterback, those interceptions get very, very variable. So if I'm picking a defense, I do like to go to teams that are just, stack up well against the run, and you take your chances with the passing game a lot of the time. So for a value D, it's not terrible. But I think the upside play is obviously Indy, but you are taking a defense that'll be going against a very popular stack. Taylor projects like the top running back of the week, but it is going up against that defense that has not allowed a ton of yardage on the ground. When we get into the numbers, 90 yards a game, 3.7 yards per attempt, 0.4 rushing touchdowns a game. So Taylor's got his work cut out for him. That said, last time out, carried the ball 23 times for 69 yards and a touchdown. Just targeted once, caught it for 6 yards. He was targeted 5 times, caught all 5 for 22 yards and a touchdown the game before in Week 9. 18 carries for 47 that game. 12 for 95 the game before that. So with the volume creeping up, the role fully intact, the coming off a bye week, I think there's a good opportunity for Jonathan Taylor to just, again, on his talent and the volume that he should see, definitely plenty of opportunity to succeed. Zach Moss is probably nothing more than a dart throw here. Does have talent, has had games this season, has gotten in the end zone. Fair amount of the time, not the last 2 weeks. Had just 1 carry for 2 yards the last time out. Not going to get there with that kind of volume. I don't love getting my dart throws at running back, as we've talked about. I don't love getting my dart throws at running back when they're going up against a good rush defense. I would much rather take my chances with the passing game there. For White, 1.5 touchdowns a game, 129 yards, and 4.1 per attempt allowed by that Indy D. Can definitely get enthusiastic about the Rachaad White play as long as he's out there. What was the actual injury? I saw that he came up questionable. I didn't actually see what it was with. A knee issue. That's never good. Peruse will be able to play in the contest. Okay, expected to play. That's late breaking. All right, good. So we can be a little bit less cautious about the White play and get a little bit more enthused about the Tampa stack. So White on his own, and White, given his volume in the passing game, I think he's very, very playable here. He's playable. My point was going to be he's very playable. He's playable on his own, and he's playable in stacks, which is great from a running back. I mean, that adds so much value to the potential of a stack when you have a highly targeted running back with a decent amount of skill who also gets fed a pretty good amount of volume on the ground. In the passing game for Indy, which has to be the focus. 270 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 270 yards a game, 1.6 touchdowns allowed through the air, and 8.2 yard defensive ADOT. People can pass on Tampa Bay. Michael Pittman, obviously an number one receiver on talent. 7,600 on the FanDuel slate. We've got, I forgot. Got to unhide the rankings. There we go. So 7,600 on FanDuel has Pittman as wide receiver 4 by value, 7 by points on both sites, 13 by value at 6,800 on the DraftKings slate. That's an interesting price and an interesting value ranking for a receiver of that caliber. The only thing really downgrading Pittman would be the play of Gardner Minshew, who has gotten there for fantasy before. Minshew, for his part, gotta remember where these things are. Minshew QB 7 by points on DraftKings, but QB 2 at 5,100. Kind of unavoidable on that DK slate. FanDuel 7 and 4. Kind of unavoidable on FanDuel as well. Mayfield ranks well. 7th on the DK board, 5,500. A little bit less so on FanDuel, which is probably another reason that I wasn't as into the Tampa side. A little bit less for value there. Going up against a D that's allowing 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 228 a game, just 10 touchdowns on the season. Pressuring the quarterback 20% of the time. Minshew's facing a 38% blitz rate, but only a 21.7% pressure rate. But that said, 29 sacks, 30 sacks, 11 interceptions for the Indy defense, 8 interceptions for the Tampa defense. I do think there's potential on both sides that either one of these defenses could succeed. Both of these teams are mid-level teams in terms of their offenses. When we're looking into some of these receiving options, so Pittman, just to put a button on him, 12 targets the last time out, 8 catches for 84. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their 10 games. He's had double-digit targets. Hasn't had double-digit receptions, but has 8 or 9 catches in, I think, every single one of those games. Yeah, it looks like every single one of those games. Just 3 touchdowns on the year, but plenty of volume. Only been over 100 yards once. That was in one of those 9-catch, 14-target games. A lot of volume there, though. Josh Downs targeted just 3 times last time out. Caught 2 of them for 40 yards. 3.08 yards per route run that game. Week before that, it was just 1.11. He ran 9 routes. He was targeted once. The volume was down those 2 games, but 44 routes run back in week 8. 30-plus basically every other week of the season. Assuming we get back coming off the bye week, we get back into full level of targets, full level of routes. I think there's upside there for Downs. Alec Pierce is our downfield threat with a 14.3 yard average depth of target. He's only targeted 3 times a game. Downs for the season, again, 6 targets a game. So just because that was down the last couple times out, I'm not going to be concerned about it coming back off the bye. Pierce is just more your dart throw, your home run play. Granson at the tight end position, 2 targets last time out, 2 targets the week before that. Just caught one of them for 5 yards last time. You have Mo Alley Cox, who ran 11 routes last time out, was targeted once. I don't love the tight end position on this team. Why can I not get back to that? Where's that depth chart? Ogletree, that's whose name I couldn't conjure. Ogletree's going to be out. That's what's giving Mo Alley a little bit of a bump here. But I don't think we go out of our way. He's been targeted roughly 10 times all season. Roughly 7 catches. Just looking at these numbers. He's got 1 touchdown. He's not been targeted in the red zone at all. The touchdown came on 2 routes, 1 target, 1 catch for 35 yards and a touchdown back in week 4. as like a value guy, he ranks 26th by points. That's really all you need to know. This is not much of a projection. 25th by value. I don't think there's really any reason to spend any time on Mo Wiley. Kylan Granson may be a little bit more playable because DK is ranked 10th by points per dollar with just a 5-point projection. Only 2,600, only 100 more than Mo Wiley. Maybe that just pushes you toward Kylan Granson. If you have to save that 100 for whatever reason, it's a bigger dart throw at the tight end position, but it is a cheap value play. Maybe you can get away with it. It's large field tournament only. No love for anybody downboard, McKenzie, Mallory, any of that. Evans, Godwin, we talked about. Trey Palmer, 3,100 on DraftKings. Got to be interesting. 47th ranked by points, but 36th by value. Gains a little bit of ground there. Last time out, 6 targets. Got a carry. 1 carry for 6 yards. 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 22 yards. We're not talking about a world beater in terms of his productivity. The average depth of target is 11.7 yards, so his average depth of target a little bit better than Godwin. Definitely not at the level of Mike Evans, but kind of the in-between guy. Just doesn't draw as many targets by a long shot as his teammates. They get double the targets that he does. Cade Otton, similar level in terms of targeting as Trey Palmer, getting 5 a game, a 6.5 yard A-dot. Tight end 13 by points, 16 by value on DK, 15th and 18th on FanDuel. Last time out, Otton got 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 49 yards. Fairly reliable tight end hands. Had a 2-touchdown game back in week 9. Has had, 6 targets in the red zone the last 3 games. So maybe as a touchdown-dependent tight end, I don't mind it that much. 3,200. Playable guy. I don't think we're going anywhere near the Payne Durham, Coke Keefes of the world. These are just guys that end up coming out of the player pool at that level. Devin Tompkins ran 13 routes last time, but was targeted just once. 7 routes in week 10, targeted twice. He's got 2 catches in those 2 games. They didn't come in the game where he was targeted twice. One of them did. Not really an option. Wide receiver 73 and wide receiver 70. I don't think we need to spend too much time on him. 7.5 yard A-dot, targeted just twice a game basically over the course of the season. Putting up 0.9 yards per route run overall. Actually, that's not updated for the last couple of weeks, but I can't imagine it's gotten any higher. So, hyper playable core of receivers there. 2 very good options in the receiving game here. 2 excellent running back plays. 2 playable quarterbacks, and also some playable defense. Pittsburgh, Cincy. This one, it could be really, really ugly. I'm hoping we get a game here. As we talked about at the top, I do think there's potentially a little bit of Pittsburgh value in play. Let's find what the numbers look like. If I can remember which columns to unhide. Oh, they're right there. It was already unhidden. Should actually look at the board before I start doing that. QB 9 by points, but QB 3 by value for Kenny Pickett on DK. 9th and 9th on FanDuel. That was the difference across sites that I was trying to unsuccessfully to express before. But there's value here. It's a high projection. Kenny Pickett has a... in terms of FanDuel points anyway. Actually, wait. I can give you a DK number. Sub 10 DraftKings points average. So this is a lofty projection for Kenny Pickett. But he's going up against a defense that's allowed 13 touchdowns through the air, 7.6 yards per pass attempt, 250 yards a game, a 10.1 yard defensive A-dot. And he's got very, very good receivers on his side, if nothing else. Deontay and George Pickens are good receivers. Pat Freiermuth, as much as Seth hates him, is a good tight end. And at 2,900, he ranks first on the value board on DK. 7th by points, but first by points per dollar. 8th and 5th on FanDuel. 21st and 11th for Deontay, 26th and 24th for George Pickens for 4,700. That's actually stark. Look at that. Look at that difference in what the value does. Just separated by $200 and a point and a half. It's a big, big difference. Deontay obviously doesn't get in the end zone very often, but a very capable wideout. We'll look at the numbers in just a sec. You've got Jamar Chase on the other side. No T again this week, but you've got Tyler Boyd, Trenton Irwin. I like this trio of wide receivers. I think that their tight ends are playable guys, especially where they rank price-wise. But for 27, you're getting a 15th ranked value tight end in Tanner Hudson, where for 29, you're getting a first ranked value tight end on the other side. But there is, potential around the downstream options in the Cincy passing game. Obviously love Jamar Chase, any given slate, just points-wise. But we do have to keep in mind who's throwing him the ball. Jake Browning, not the greatest projection in the world, ranks 18th on DK, 19th on FanDuel, 18th and 19th for value, 18th and 18th on FanDuel. Pull him back up over here. Oh, wait. Wrong spot. Threw 14 passes in Week 11 against Baltimore. Threw a touchdown, 68 yards. Ran 4 times for 40 more. That's against the Baltimore defense, too. Did throw a touchdown pass. 4.9 yards per pass attempt. It's not a great total, but that Baltimore D is really good. So in that situation, that's not awful. There's potentially a little bit of value there if he just hooks up with Jamar Chase 14 times in the game. There's potentially a little bit of value just in that pairing. Let me get to... Dude's 27. Holy shit. Did not realize that. Where was Jake Browning playing? I gotta say, I don't really know that much about the guy in terms of his background. And I didn't really bother to look too deep into him. He went to Washington. Was he just old at Washington? He was undrafted in 2019. Okay, so he was on the Vikings but never got in a game. I guess practice squad. Yeah, off-season and or practice squad member only of the Vikings from 2019 to 2021. So he was a Vikings practice squad quarterback for 3 years. Had a monster 2016 with the Huskies. 14 games, went 12-2. 3,400 yards and 43 touchdown passes. Never approached anything like that. Was he playing with somebody ridiculous on that team? Who was the top wide receiver for the 2016 Washington Huskies? Anybody know? That was who he succeeded with. Andre Bocelli was on that team. There's got to be somebody here that helped him to get to that total. Quentin Pounds. John Ross. Was it John Ross? Yep, John Ross had 17 touchdowns that year. 1,100 yards. That'll help. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to kind of ride with the projections, which don't really have him looking great. I think it's more a spot where I'll take some shots with Jamar Chase. I'll take some shots with Tyler Boyd just on their own, where I'm not hoping that he's got to really, the quarterback score has to come through also. I can get 100 yards and a touchdown out of Jamar Chase if the kid has an okay game. I don't want to have to ride on the projection there. Nolas, Daniels, Hawkins, Jones, Ingram, and Joval. I think that's what I had. Pretty sure that's what I had in. Thanks, Beantown. Appreciate that. Keep them coming if we get any other changes, but I'm pretty sure we're okay on that one. See, I don't know. He is definitely cheap. He's got an excellent Jamar Chase to work with. He's got a very capable running back to work with as well on the passing game in Joe Mixon. I could see him doing it on value. But it's more in the Tommy DeVito threw 3 touchdowns last week kind of a sense. You know, Tommy DeVito didn't have a Jamar Chase to throw to. But, I don't know. There are a lot of options. Joe Mixon last time out, 5 targets, 3 the week before that, 6 the week before that. Carries the ball mid-teens basically every week. So Mixon is still, maintaining 20 touchdowns. 20 touchdowns, I wish. 20 touches per week. Going up against a defense that's allowing 127 yards a game. 0.6 touchdowns is limiting, but 4.4 yards per rush attempt. But the overall volume has been stacked up pretty high. That said, he's rushing for just 60 yards a game on his 15 carries. 4 yards per rush attempt, 4 touchdowns on the ground. On the other side at the running back position, we've got Jalen Warren, Najee Harris. This got split to, let's see, last time out. Najee led in snaps. He led in carries. Jalen Warren just barely out-targeted him by 1, but Warren had by far the better game. Warren had 3 targets, caught all 3 of them for 16 yards. He carried the ball 9 times for 129 yards and a touchdown. Najee, and that was on 25 snaps. Najee saw 33 snaps, carried the ball 12 times for 35 yards, targeted twice, caught 1 of them for 1 yard. This continues to be Jalen Warren being the better back. Najee Harris getting a few more snaps and being less productive with them. Najee did get in the end zone the 2 weeks in a row before that, weeks 9 and 10. So credit to him, but in week 10 anyway, Warren had 15 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. In week 9, he had 11 carries for 88 yards. He's outproducing Najee on fewer touches. He's the more efficient back. He's more involved in the passing game. For a little bit more, I continue to prefer Jalen Warren here. These are the ones I haven't on hidden yet for some reason. Oh, my clicking game is so weak. For somebody who uses a mouse and sits here at his computer clicking on shit so long in every day, you'd think I'd be better at just accurately clicking these things. So, 18 and 18 for Warren on DraftKings. Najee does come cheap. 4,900 puts him RB11 by points per dollar, but just RB19 by points. On FanDuel, it's not really a concern. 17th and 19th by points for the two of them. 19th and 22nd. Either one's playable. Basically an even draw. Nothing to see downboard at the running back position for either one of the teams. As mentioned, Chase off the top, wide receiver 5 by points, is very expensive on the DraftKings slate at 83, wide receiver 37 by points per dollar. FanDuel-wise, wide receiver 9 by points per dollar. Doesn't really matter. Boyd an interesting-ish dart. He doesn't drop down into the 40s or anything like that. Trent Irwin is in the 40s for points, but 14th by points per dollar is kind of interesting at 32. Irwin drew 5 targets last time, 4 targets the week before. Some upside there with Higgins out. Wide receiver 36 and 29 on the FanDuel slate. Tyler Boyd 28 and 26 on FanDuel. You can go to either one of them, but they're not really priced appropriately as value darts on the FanDuel board. They're just kind of semi-playable parts with a question mark at the quarterback position. We touched on the tight ends briefly there. 15th and 22nd, 13th and 23rd by points per dollar. There's a little bit of potential. 11 targets over the last 2 games for Tanner Hudson. He caught 10 of them. 72 combined yards. Irv Smith, just 1 target each of the last 2 weeks. Probably doesn't even deserve to be as highly projected as he is right now. Drew 4 targets each of the 2 weeks before that. That was when Hudson was banged up. Hudson played one of those games. He played week 9. So if you get the week 9 targeting from Irv Smith that came alongside Hudson, Hudson had 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 45 yards in that game. Irv got 4 targets, caught 3 of them for 26, but he got the touchdown. He also got 3 targets in the red zone where Hudson was not targeted in the red zone. Hudson hasn't been targeted in the red zone all season. Granted, he's missed a handful of games, 5 games. But maybe the only thing Irv would be clinging to life here with would be the touchdown upside. I like the value ratings on the Pittsburgh side. We talked about Freiermuth in terms of his price, in terms of where he lands for the points per dollar. We talked about his limited routes run, only 12 routes run, only 1 target. It's the reason that Seth doesn't like him. I can understand. I mean, that's definitely not great. Going up against that Cleveland defense, though, Cleveland's got a 29.5% blitz rate, a 27.6% pressure rate, and 33 sacks on the season. So if you just want to think it through in terms of keeping him in to block a little bit more than they probably will against a team with a 23% blitz rate, 22% pressure rate, 26 sacks, I would suspect that that's the where the limited routes run came from. I didn't really dig into too much of looking downstream at like Connor Hayward ran 3 routes. Who else is even on the depth chart? Like his snap total, Freiermuth, was 31. Hit 27 snaps in week 4, 47 snaps, 40 snaps, 31 snaps going back weeks 3 through week 1. So it wasn't his biggest snap game of the season, but it wasn't his lowest either. So I said Hayward, Washington had... So Washington picked up the other routes. He ran 10 routes. 1 target, caught it, 8 yards, 26 snaps. I really think it's still Freiermuth's job. I don't think there's any reason to doubt that. I just think that he was, the limited routes probably were a product of who they were facing. And also the fact that he had missed, the 5 weeks before that. So just limited action. I think we see an uptick. I hope, anyway, because I'll have it. And I think it's just kind of an unavoidable value. That's not the one to highlight. I think it's just kind of an unavoidable value on both sides, really. But really on DK. You could quibble with the projected total that he's probably got to for catches. You can see that in the difference between the FanDuel projection and the DraftKings projection. So if you wanted to take him down a point, take away a catch, that's fine. He would still project very, very well. This won't change. This isn't drawing the information, the ranking from here. But even if you took it away, even if you could put him at 7, I think he'd be a fairly valuable tight end. Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, I don't think there's enough volume really to support that. Robinson did see 4 targets in the last game, just 20 yards on 3 catches. Has not been over 30 yards in any game except for week 1. Caught 5 catches, 64 yards that game, 8 targets. That was his second highest target volume. Week 5, he drew 9 targets, caught 5 of them for 29 yards. Hasn't been in the end zone, hasn't done anything all season. Calvin Austin was in the end zone in week 3. Has not drawn more than 1 target any of the last 3 weeks. Has 4 total targets since their week 6 bye. Not a good option. So it's really, really, really about those 3 guys and then the running backs. And my preferred, if I'm stacking this team, is Jaylen Warren. I do think in an individual basis you can play either one of the running backs. But if you're stacking this team, I think you want Jaylen Warren in with the stacks. Or just go to the passing game. Anything else to talk about here? I think that covers most of this. Nolan's at Atlanta. Get to this one. Like I said, I really hope that Atlanta figures out their quarterback position because I like this team for skill players. They're not going to do it before tomorrow's game. But I don't love going to this version of this team against this New Orleans pass defense. Like I said at the top, maybe this is Bijan Robinson week. 23rd ranked, 4.3 yards per rush attempt. Let's start with Bijan. 6th ranked on DK by points, 7th by points per dollar, 6th and 6th on FanDuel. Going up against a team allowing 4.3 yards per rush attempt, 113 yards a game, just 0.6 touchdowns a game on the season. Could become problematic, a little bit of bend, don't break there. But the yardage total should be enough to support Bijan at the price. 6,500 on DK, 7,400 on FanDuel. I think that's a decent enough value play. You do have the looming threat always of Tyler Algier. In their most recent game, Bijan carried the ball 22 times for 95 yards and a touchdown, was targeted twice, caught one of them for 11 yards. And Tyler Algier, did I not put him in here? There he is. Algier carried the ball 9 times for 31 yards, no touchdown. But the week before that, in week 9, he carried it 12 times, 39 yards, scored a touchdown. Has 4 red zone carries each of the last 2 games. Not great. In that same span, Bijan had 4 red zone carries in week 10. Didn't have a red zone carry in week 9. Algier, going back in time, dominated the red zone carries through weeks like 5, 6, and 7, or 6 and 7, really. 4 in week 6, 7 in week 7. That was one of those just offensive games. Or was that? No, that was the game that Bijan only saw 10 snaps. Where he missed most of the game. Ran 8 routes, 10 snaps, carried the ball once. That was that weird outlier week. But just a frustrating situation to go to overall. Bijan is the clear talent there. He's the clear star. He's got the better projection by a mile. He's the playable running back. Tyler Algier, like I said, I don't love getting my dart throws at running back. But you could sell me on the idea that he's going to get a low yardage total but 2 touchdowns for the price. That would be your upside. Alvin Kamara's Alvin Kamara. You can always play him. He had 7 targets the last game, caught all 7 of them, just 33 yards. Carried the ball just 9 times. A concerning 9 carries in each of the last 2 games. Limited in terms of the volume in the rush game. 17 carries in week 7 and week 8. Not that they're looking in Jamal Williams' direction, really. 4 carries for him in week 10. 7 yards, 3 carries in week 6. Hasn't carried the ball in the red zone since week 7. Over that same stretch, Kamara's got no carries in the red zone in week 10, but 2 in week 9, 5 in week 8, 6 in week 7. It's Alvin Kamara all day with this offense. No issues going to him. 8,400 is a big price to pay. RB4 by projections, but 21 by value on DraftKings. RB4 13 on FanDuel. Much better over there. Going up against a defense, though, that's allowing just 3.9 yards per rush attempt. 108 yards a game. But again, kind of bend, don't break. Give him a little bit. The yards per rush attempt is good. The game total is not great, but the 0.4 touchdowns a game is good. In terms of the passing situation, we do get Derek Carr healthy off the injury report. QB 10, 11 on DraftKings, 10-10 on FanDuel. It's Derek Carr. It's a perfectly normal Derek Carr situation. Going up against the defense, allowing just 200 yards a game, but 6.2 yards per pass attempt. 17 touchdowns on the season. 21 sacks and only 5 interceptions. Some of this plays in Derek Carr's favor. The pressure rate, 26%, is pretty good, but that's not going to intimidate Derek Carr. We've also just had our clunkers with Carr this year. We've had a couple games where he's been hurt, a couple games where he came out. 18 pass attempts in the last one, 110 yards, no scores. Week before that, 34 pass attempts, completed 25 of them for 211 and 2 TDs. 2 touchdown game and 300 yards on 27 pass attempts against Indy in week 8. Coming off the bye, should be fully healthy, ready to go. So, a little bit of Carr plus Kamara, Carr plus Chris Olave. Olave had 9 targets on 42 routes run the last time out. 6 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. 6 catches each of the last 2 games. Rashid Shaheed drew a bunch of targets the last time out. He's a good downfield weapon. Shade with the monster 15.9 yard ADOT on the season. 5 targets a game and mostly in a home run kind of a style. Go for broke. I never mind getting the shares of Rashid Shaheed. That said, well, all right, he got in the end zone in Week 8. I forgot about that one. 3 catches for 153 and the touchdown in Week 8. That's a Rashid Shaheed game. That's exactly what we're looking for. 3 targets, 3 catches, 153 and a touchdown. In Week 9, 3 catches, just 22 yards, no touchdown. Week 10, with the 9 targets, he only caught 5 of them for 24 yards. That's the downside with Rashid Shaheed. Taysom Hill is really annoying. Kamara, they were the Bears and the Vikings that he faced. Dennis was asking. Lone Wolf's here. Did I say hi to Lone Wolf? I didn't see Lone Wolf sneak in. What's up, buddy? 17 people hanging out. Coming up on 9:30 on a Saturday night. You guys rock. We'll try and get off the air before the 11 o'clock news hits, before Saturday Night Live. Certainly, hopefully before the NBA games end, as I said. Let's check the NBA scores here real quick. See how we're doing. It's only a 10-game slate. I know we're kind of taking our time and meandering, and we had to take that break to update NBA minutes earlier, but I still feel like we're doing okay here. Big Papa Gates winning the FanDuel tournament so far. Ooh, he's got a slot left, too. He's got his shooting guard left to come. Only 284 points, though. All right. It's looking okay. Couple potentially decent lineups in here. Ooh, that actually might be a pretty good one. Interesting. All right. Should be some stuff to sweat later on, let's hope. So, where are we? On the Taysom Hill front, that's where we left off. Tight end 8 by fantasy points on DraftKings for 5,000. Tight end 20 by points per dollar. 6th and 10th because he cost 6,500 on FanDuel. It's a little bit better. There's obviously huge upside in Taysom Hill in the right week. I just really don't tend to hit those weeks correctly for whatever reason. In their last game, that's right, he's got this funky box score. Tell you what, I can just cheat and talk about his fantasy points. This one. In a FanDuel sense, Taysom Hill had 3.3 FanDuel points the last time out. Caught 2 of 4 targets for 17 yards. No touchdown. Ran the ball once for just 6 yards. Don't know if he had any passing attempts that one. Doesn't have his passing stats up. But in a fantasy sense, had the 3 weeks before that, 18 FanDuel points, 21.9 FanDuel points, 14.8 FanDuel points. And then just an average tight end game in week, whatever that was, October 15th against Houston. 7 catches on 8 targets for 49 yards that week, 8.7 FanDuel points. So given that crazy quarterback, running back, everything upside, Swiss Army knife type upside, I think is in any given slate, dart throw kind of a play. Always easy to get to. It's just that he's not priced like that. He should be priced like more the gadget player that he is. This is aggressive. Given his ceiling, that 20-plus point ceiling at the position, he was neck and neck with Travis Kelce over those few weeks. So given that, I mean, I can't say that it's an incorrect price. I just feel like it would be better for all of us if they priced him a little bit more friendly. If we have to go to the Atlanta passing game, Drake London definitely looks like a value. Wide receiver 10 on the DraftKings board. 5,000 is a good price for all the talent in Drake London. Kyle Pitts, wide receiver 9, wide receiver 11 by points, 9th and 9th on FanDuel. Jonnu Smith draws targets away from him. Yeah, what have we been the last week or 2? Pitts has exactly 5 targets in their last 4 games. He's caught 3 of them 3 times and 4 of them once. Hasn't scored a touchdown in those 4 games. Jonnu Smith has, over that same 4-game stretch, 3, 1, 6, and 3 targets, and turned that into 1 touchdown over the 4 weeks. That was in week 9. He had a 5-catch, 100-yard game with a touchdown that week. Otherwise, it's just been a handful of catches. Not really massive production in it by any means. Had some good yardage games in the middle of the season. 6 catches in week 4, 6 catches in week 5, 95 and 67 yards. It's cooled a little bit, but he is still drawing some red zone targets. 1 red zone target in each of 3 of the last 5 games. I think that came through properly. No red zone targets in the last 4 games for Kyle Pitts. So there is a little bit of a neck-and-neck situation there at the tight end position. Jonnu Smith isn't an incredibly crazy pivot. I think that's a reasonable pivot for 600 less on DraftKings. Only 200 less on FanDuel. Just tight end 9, tight end 8. No Matt Collins again for this team. So we're dealing with a downboard group of Van Jefferson to Darrell Hodge. Jefferson, 8 routes run, just 1 target. Last time out, 25 snaps. Hodge ran 7 routes, was untargeted. The game before that, he ran 27 routes, targeted 6 times, caught 3 of them for 60, 3 catches for 75 in week 8. If you get that kind of volume, I could see an uptick here, but I'm not giving these guys anything more in projections. They don't rank out well on either site. Kind of also ran options. At 31-32, again, this is my 140th lineup, and I need a $3,200 receiver, fine. Plug in Darrell Hodge. But we're talking about large field tournament dart throws. Going up against a team allowing less than 200 passing yards a game. 1.3 touchdowns through the air. Hodge does have the 16.2-yard ADOT. Jefferson's a downfield threat as well, 17.6 yards. But they're extremely thin home run type touchdown plays. Home run type touchdown plays. That's a common phrase. What are you not touching on down here? A.T. Perry, Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson's a reasonable enough tight end pivot for $3,000. If you don't want to go the Taysom Hill route, save $2,000. Go to Juwan Johnson, a really good tight end overall. He had 28 routes run, 3 targets last time out. Caught 1 of them for just 2 yards. The week before that, he had 5 catches, 29 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets. He's the true tight end in terms of the receiving tight end. Or, well, that's not really fair to Taysom Hill. But for $3,000, that's a reasonable pivot on DraftKings. At 47 on FanDuel, I don't like it as much. Tight end 19 over there. It's just tight end 17 on DraftKings, but I just really like the rock bottom pricing and the slightly higher projection on the back of an additional catch. Or same number of catches, additional point. Kirkwood is just kind of a nothing. These guys come out of the player pool. Let's move on. We will not spend a lot of time on this one. We're going to pick up some time on this Giants and Patriots game. It's just ugly across the board. Outside of Saquon and Ramondre Stevenson, there's really not a lot of talent in this game. Whether you get Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, who cares? It's just not a really good situation. The Giants do rank 25th against the pass, 7 yards per pass attempt, 236 yards per game, 14 touchdowns on the season. They've got a 40% blitz rate, but just a 20% pressure rate. Go New York! 19 sacks, 9 picks. It's not a good defense. It's not a good quarterback, though. He does rank well for value, 4,400. Bailey Zappi, if he's in, going to get you to QB4. Should have put Mac Jones up here, too. He doesn't have a projection. I just wanted to see the price. 51 from Mac Jones. So I would like Mac Jones less than Bailey Zappi if Mac Jones is the starter. Same price on FanDuel. It's just kind of a more direct pivot on FanDuel. Mac Jones' projection would be roughly around this area. a point below, a point above, plus or minus 1.5. Neither one of these guys would be a priority. There's a reason that there's a quarterback controversy between two bad quarterbacks. And Tommy DeVito makes it 3 bad quarterbacks, really. 20th ranked on FanDuel, 19th ranked on DraftKings, going up against a defense that's allowed 228 yards a game, just 6.5 yards per pass attempt, 12 touchdowns on the season. They blitz at a 36.9% rate, 22.1% pressure rate, just 18 sacks. These teams, for the amount that they blitz, do not get to the quarterback enough. Just 6 interceptions. Not great. DeVito throwing the ball 16 times a game overall. 101 yards a game, 6 touchdowns. He is actually now apparently the Giants record holder over his first 2 starts for touchdown passes, which is weird. He did have the 3 touchdown passes last game, 2 touchdown passes in Week 10 against Dallas. But that game, he went 14 of 27 throwing the ball, 51.9% completion rate, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, 3.2 yards per pass attempt. Against Vegas, threw the ball 15 to 20 times, completed 15 to 20 passes, 75%, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions against the worst defense, 8.8 yards per attempt. Last game you can't take it away from him. The IPAs that I drank at fake Thanksgiving took part of it away from me. But 18 of 26, 246 yards, 3 touchdown passes. I saw him throw all 3 of them. I did not refer to them in the groups column this week as the New York don't stacks. That's all he gained from me. They're once again the New York Giants in terms of how I named them in the groups article. I still am not going to stack this team. I just don't buy it. I'll have some Saquon because Saquon. 7,300, RB3, RB9 on DraftKings, RB3, RB5 on FanDuel for 8,000. That said, they are going up against a defense that is allowing just 3.4 yards per rush attempt. Second ranked in the league, 6.5 yards per pass attempt, 17th ranked. Giants defense way worse. That bodes well for Ramondre. Ramondre getting a run against the team, giving up 135 yards a game, 1.5 touchdowns a game. Could be a pretty solid spot for him, which is good because he could use it. I could use it in the season-long league. Last time out, 5 targets, 3 catches, 14 yards, 20 carries, 88 yards. In Week 9, he had 9 carries for 87, got himself in the end zone for the first time in 3 weeks in that game. Didn't score in Week 10, but it's not a bad game. 23 touches, 25 potential touches, and what's that, 102 yards from scrimmage. I'll take that, even if he doesn't score. I would much rather have the touchdown, and the Giants are a defense that is very likely to give up the touchdown to him. RB5 on DK by points, RB1 by value at 5,800, 5 and 3 for 6,800 on the FanDuel board. Saquon will have his work cut out for him, but he's just going to get fed the ball. So even against a decent rush defense, it might be a situation where they just surround him with players and dare Tommy DeVito to beat them. In last week's game, with DeVito succeeding like he did, Saquon had 14 carries, 83 yards, 4 catches for 57, and scored twice through the air. That's the kind of volume you're getting. I mean, 18, 20 touches, had a 36 carry game back in Week 8. If it goes anywhere near approaching that, forget it. But the last 3 weeks have been more realistic. 16 carries, 13 carries, 14 carries. 4, 3, and 5 targets. Plenty of volume for Saquon. Got to break through that rush defense, but should have plenty of opportunities too. No love for Breida, Eric Gray. I haven't played Ezekiel Elliott all year long. If you're a big Zeke fan for whatever reason, fine. Throw the dart. He looks exactly like he has on basically every week this year. I haven't used him at all, and haven't really lived to regret it. 2 touchdowns on the season. They came in Week 6 and 7. Hasn't been over... He gained 54 yards on 13 carries last week. We'll give him that much. But before that, had not been over 35 yards. Had not been over 36 yards since Week 3. Not a lot of love for Zeke here. Just not much to see in this passing game. Technically, Devontae Parker, because he only cost 3,000, wide receiver 1 by points per dollar on the DraftKings slate, but I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if he's playing for 1. He's questionable. If he gets out there, it's a dart throw. It's a large field tournament dart throw. They're going up against a terrible pass defense. 236 yards a game, 7 yards per attempt, 1.27 touchdowns a game. But it's Devontae Parker. I mean, 2 targets the last time he played on 12 routes run. That was in week 8. He's missed the last 2. 19 routes run in week 7, targeted once. 26 routes run in week 6, targeted 3 times, caught 1 of them. 1 catch in each of his last 3 games. 2 weeks out, then a bye week, and is currently questionable. I really don't think we're going to have this to work with, and maybe that projection should come down a little bit. I don't think I gave him a ding, but it might be time to. I got to check back and look at my season-long projections. See if he's got a little red mark next to him. That means I changed something. Hunter Henry for 34. Tight end 8 by value on DraftKings, 11 by value on FanDuel. Playable enough. He had 5 targets last time out, 6 targets the week before that. In that week 9 game, he had 4 catches for 39 and a touchdown. You need him to score. I don't think he's going to get you the big yardage total. He's not one of those kind of tight ends. But if he gets you in the end zone, target in the red zone in each of the last 2 games. Just 1, but they've looked his direction a little bit. Mike Gesicki still drawing some targets, still running some routes. 19 routes run in week 10. They targeted him 3 times, caught 2 of them for 22. In week 9, he ran 36 routes. That was Hunter Henry that week ran 35. Gesicki saw 54 snaps. Hunter Henry saw 55. About 12 personnel here, assuming. I don't really want to go the Juju Smith-Schuster route, Keishon Boutte, Jalen Reagor. You get a little bit of a bump here if Parker doesn't go. Juju ran 31 routes last time out, targeted once, caught 1 of them for 9 yards. The week 9 game was a little better. 19 routes run, but was targeted 7 times, caught 6 of them for 51 in his best game of the season. Had a touchdown in week 8 on 1 catch for 3 yards. Demario Douglas, I know I skipped over the lead receiver right now. 7, 7, and 9 targets each of the last 3 weeks. 5, 5, and 6 catches. 25, 55, and 84 yards. No touchdowns on the season, concerningly. If this is the week you get him in the end zone, he could pay off okay. That's just an okay mid-range type of wide receiver play. I'm fine with taking some shares of it on his own. I'm fine with taking some shares of it if you feel compelled to go to the value price if you get Bailey Zappi. I think it makes sense to go Bailey Zappi and Demario Douglas. I don't know that I want to go to a +2 unless it's Ramondre. What's Ramondre's targeting look like? Yeah, plenty of targets to support that. It would probably be top option, second option, third option, assuming Parker doesn't go. If Parker's in there, obviously the value takes him to second option, probably third option at worst. But I think in a +2 situation, if I'm going to this stack, and I would probably only go to that stack where it's if it's Zappi, given the value, and on DK. I think I would primarily want stacks of him, Stevenson, and DeMario as my my +2s. That's kind of obvious. I think that's the way that a lot of people will go. You could maybe squeeze a little bit out of, let's say you get Devontae Parker, and you wanted to go with a +2. Going to a $4,400 Bailey Zappi and a $3,000 Parker and a $3,000 Juju Smith-Schuster, you're trying to thread a really, really specific needle through a really microscopic eyelet there. But it's really cheap. With 10-4 for 3 positions, that's really cheap. It's cheap because they're not good, but they're not going up against a good defense. Each one of these receivers has given us games in the past. You just get the ghost of a memory of one of their previous games and could be off and running. So that's really the only way I would want to stack up that team, and it's really only present on DraftKings. They're just not priced that same way on FanDuel. And then this team is just garbage. Wandale is your top option, 3,800, wide receiver 44.47 on DraftKings, 45.43 on FanDuel, and it gets worse from there. Jalen Hyatt is very cheap. I don't project him all that well. He's probably drawing a little bit more of a projection in other places, but believe me, there's not much there. 2 targets last time out, caught 1 of them for 7 yards. No catches on 1 target the week before that. 2 catches for 19 last time in week 9 on 5 targets, 27 routes run. Was supposed to be a deep threat. Was supposed to be an explosive play kind of a guy. Will probably step into the second banana roll here with Darius Slayton banged up. I could see that being Shepard or Hodgins, though. It's not like there's any security in any of these plays, and it's not like they project out well at all. Any one of these guys gets into the end zone. Any one of these guys gets, let's hope not, but 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. You're going to get value here. You're going to see those guys in successful lineups. But it's not a priority. I know Tommy DeVito threw 3 touchdowns last week. It's not a priority. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen again. That would have been something I would have said last week. But it's not a priority. Again, this is a game with a 34-point total. Giants 3.5-point dogs at home to this awful team. Remember when I said we were going to pick up time in that game? Let's talk about a fun game. This one's more fun. Rams and the Cards. A couple of capable fantasy quarterbacks, if nothing else. Kyler Murray, very solid projection. Matthew Stafford, a little bit behind him, but for a little bit less money. I can get enthused about either one of those. I like Stafford just based on who he's got to throw the ball to, with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua. A little bit of Tutu, a little bit of Tyler Higbee to mix in there. 44.5-point total, 2-point spread. Let's start with the Stafford side. 17 touchdowns allowed by that defense on the season, 217 yards a game, but 7.1 yards per pass attempt. They only gain pressure 17.6% of the time, which makes it kind of surprising that they've got 32 sacks on the season. 8 interceptions. Stafford throwing the ball nearly 35 times a game, 250 yards a game. Just 9 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. On the other side, Kyler Murray's just got the 1 touchdown pass so far this season in his 2 games. 231 yards a game in those 2, throwing the ball 31 times a game, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. He's already rushed in 2, running the ball 6.5 times a game, putting up 6.5 yards per rush attempt. And the 2 rush TDs are obviously pretty good. His intended air yards per attempt was actually pretty solid there as well. 10.2 intended air yards per attempt, just completing 4.3 and 7.5 yards per attempt. But the intended air yards is pretty nice in those first 2 games. QB6 across the board on both sites for Kyler Murray. 8.13 for Stafford, 8.8 on FanDuel. Like Stafford a little better on the FanDuel slate for 6,900. It's a pretty good relative price for him. Oops. The last time we saw Kyren Williams, week 6, carried the ball 20 times for 158 yards and a touchdown. And that was against this Arizona team. So that's good. Wasn't targeted, ran 19 routes, but was untargeted. In the passing game the weeks leading up to that one. Had a 10-target game back in week 2, 7-target game in week 3. Greg nails it. Tommy DeVito going to end up on the cast of next season of Jersey Shore. That is a great call. If they ended up doing like a celebrity Jersey Shore, like 3-4 years from now, like that would be primo casting. You heard it here first. Greg Biancone nailed it. Yeah, Beantown going back a game. I missed your note there. Stevenson feels like a decent play. I do like that Ramondre Stevenson play. Pretty sure he's in that placeholder lineup that I've got on FanDuel too. This is actually sneakily just an excuse for me to check my basketball scores again. Pretty decent. Oh, no, that's right. I pivoted to, I got to a Taylor Pacheco combo there. and then went a different direction. But yeah, he was in that spot for a while. I'm going to have a pretty good amount of Ramondre's. Starring in a biopic as Frank Stallone. Solid. So, what's the actual status on Kyron? Is he off the injury report at this point? Or is he still Q-tagged? Yeah, totally off the injury report, it looks like. Activated off injury reserve, good to go. Is the note on from whoever this is? Shefty. So that's good. We haven't had him since week 6. 3 DMPs, a bye week, and another DMP. But that helps this offense. I don't know that he gets a massive target share again. I don't know that he comes back into 20 touches necessarily. But I think there's definitely some value there. Royce Freeman was showing a little bit of life in his absence, though. 17 carries last time out, 73 yards. 12 carries, 32 yards the week before that. 9 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown against Dallas in week 8. They let go of Darrell Henderson. I don't know if they re-signed her to the practice squad or what, but not going to be with the team this week. So I really do think it's Kyren Williams and Royce Freeman, 1-1A. You might see more carries for Freeman this week than next week, though, just in an easing Kyren Williams back in sense. But given that the notes seem to indicate that, like, full go, kind of think Kyren Williams is interesting here. What does he cost? 66? RB 10, 14? That's about right. RB 9, 15 on FanDuel. This is a little expensive, actually. We could have gotten Kyren Williams, given that he's been out for so long, we could have gotten him a little bit cheaper out there, industry. What's going on? That's it, going up against the defense, allowing 132 yards, 1.3 touchdowns a game. On the other side, James Conner with a little bit of opportunity going up against the D, allowing 4.1 yards per attempt, 1.2 touchdowns a game, 100 plus yards a game. There's enough life there. Amari DeMarcado is also questionable to play. I don't think DeMarcado, in a both guys healthy situation, is a major threat to James Conner touches. Conner came back in week 10, carried the ball 16 times, 73 yards, untargeted on 15 routes. Carried the ball 14 times for 62 last week. 3 targets on 21 routes run. DeMarcado hasn't played since week 8. In week 8, he carried the ball 20 times for 78. Targeted once on 12 routes run. 13 carries for 58 in week 7. Targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them. But I think he takes a backseat to James Conner. That's how it's landing in projections, obviously. That said, DeMarcado could probably use a little nudge. So let me write that down. Who's the other guy? I got to take Tony out. I want to take a look at DeMarcado. Who's the other guy I said I got to take a look at? I forget. It was a tight end, I want to say. I can go back and listen to the show later and find out. Phil Still. What's up, Phil? Phil says, Tara, this has been good stuff. You're in my ear while we move into a new place. And I'm saying, huh, to the girlfriend. Good stuff, buddy. Good luck with the new place. Moving is never fun, but a new place is always exciting. New place is always fun. Hopefully the move is going smoothly. Hopefully you guys doing it yourselves, Phil? It sounds like. But did you guys like actually pack up and move everything yourselves, U-Haul style, or was it like you're unpacking from having a moving company move stuff? I've always just been a single guy, like moving apartments, and I've only moved a couple times. So it's always just been me and like grab a friend who's got a car, and I can fit all my stuff in there like multiple times. When I moved up the hill here into Jersey City from Hoboken, I actually had a bunch of trips where like we just walked, carried some stuff, brought Joker over on foot, came back in an Uber, brought some other stuff. It was a gradual move. Full U-Haul. It's the way to do it. If you can do it, like, it's so much better because then like you're in control of your stuff. Like you always hear, oh, that was lost in the move. Like, or, tragically, like, oh, family photos. Like, you hope that it's just like, oh, our Tupperware got lost in the move. Like, who cares? But you hear all the time, like, people lose, like, important, like, stuff. Family heirlooms and so on. So, yeah, definitely better and more fun. in my opinion, to do it. Like I said, moving isn't fun, and I stand by that. But more fun to do it yourself, I think. And especially if you get some friends and or you got the girlfriend there. Have some wine, have some beers, whatever the case may be. If you got people helping you, you owe them beer, you owe them pizza. But hopefully it goes well, buddy. Moving into a house, apartment, what are you moving into? I'm trying to get Phil to the point where he's talking too much to us and he gets yelled at to get back to work in his move. Let's talk about the passing game while we're waiting to hear back from Phil on his move. Trey McBride, tight end at the top of the board in the Arizona passing game. Marquise Brown, questionable to play. Currently projected as wide receiver 8 by points per dollar value on DraftKings for 5,200. That's kind of compelling. There's a lot of talent there. It's just a matter of actually having him on the field. Last time out, ran 34 routes, targeted 5 times. Caught 2 of them for 18 yards. Just 1 catch for 28 the game before that in Week 10. Ran 41 routes, 4 targets. Much better target volume in like 6 weeks leading up to those 2 kind of clunkers, but hasn't really had a big game. Hasn't been over 100 yards all season. Just 3 touchdowns on the season in the 11 games played. I looked him up earlier, right? It's a knee. Heel. It's a heel issue. Didn't practice on Friday, listed as questionable. Don't love that. No Mike Wilson, though. So like I said at the top of the show, even in a situation where Marquise Brown is out there, I kind of like Greg Dortch here. He doesn't project out great, but as like a tournament large field dart throw for 33, 48 on FanDuel, given that in last week's game, he was targeted 8 times, caught 6 of them for 76 yards, if you get that plus a touchdown, forget it. I think he's going to get popular if we don't have Hollywood, but I think people don't go to it as much if we do get Hollywood in there. So there's probably some potential there. Rondale Moore was our guy in that spot last week. We talked about him going into last week's game. He drew just 1 target, carried the ball twice for 68 yards, but that 1 target was like the second play of the game, and I was like, so it pop up. He put up 11 FanDuel points, 1 catch, 48 yards, and a touchdown on his 1 target, ran 28 routes, and it was like, bang, there we go, Rondale Moore play out of the gate, off and running, patting myself on the back. I'm vaguely remembering this from fake Thanksgiving last week. And then he wasn't targeted the rest of the game. He carried the ball twice for 6 yards. But what I thought was going to be a really nice fantasy play turned out to just be like, all right, that was okay. It didn't let us down. It didn't destroy any lineups. But I think we can go right back to the well there for a little bit of value on Rondale Moore. 3,600, ranks as wide receiver 32 and wide receiver 4 by points per dollar. Not so much on FanDuel at 52, but the 3,600 is still an aggressively low price. Now, if you get no Marquise Brown here, these guys shoot through the roof. 36-33 for the 2 lead wide receivers in this game, against the team allowing 291 yards a game, 6.6 yards per attempt, 1.6 touchdowns a game, in what could be a shootout because their defense is allowing a touchdown and a half, 7.1 yards per pass attempt. This could get ugly for popularity, but be a great value spot around Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch on the DK slate if you don't get Hollywood. If you do get him, if he plays, it's the best thing that could possibly happen, I think, outside of maybe a little downgrade in potential volume for Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch. It just makes them a little bit less appealing for the public and maybe more appealing for us in a tournament sense in a large field dart throw, home run, touchdown kind of a play, whatever you want to call it. I'll take that 1 catch, 40-yard game, 48 yards and a touchdown at a Rondale Moore at that price. I want more, but I'll take that if we get that again. I'd prefer the 8 targets, 6 catches, 70-plus yards, and roll the dice for a touchdown. You might get a little bit of like Elijah Higgins, Andre Bocelli. Right now there's nothing there. But if Marquise Brown comes off the board, I got to take a look at it and see where we're going there. Bocelli has been in there for 3 games. So 5 snaps last time out. Didn't play the week before that. 3 snaps, 2 snaps. No targets all year. Elijah Higgins, 9 snaps with the offense last time. Ran 4 routes, targeted twice, caught one of them for 2 yards. That was his only catch. Oh, no. Second catch of the season. The first catch, he just didn't have any yards. That came in week 7 against Seattle. He's been targeted 4 times all season in his 5 games. So I guess, based on the virtue of that, maybe it's Higgins first, then Bachelia? Bachelia? I don't know. How Italian is Andre Bachelia? It's probably Bachelia. Phil's moving into a nice duplex. That's awesome, dude. And he's got the beer and the girlfriend's got the wine. Love it. Greg Biancone says, most of my moves involve throwing most of my stuff in the dumpster. Mamba moved, literally donated everything. Mamba coming in and being the better person yet again. What a good dude. Donated most of the stuff in the house. Everything in the house. I was over at about 5 minutes into packing. That's great. Mamba, you're a generous guy. Not seeing Jimmy G as a Jersey guy. Can see Minshew as a possible Jersey Shores comeback. Good stuff. So Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. It's been a minute. Cooper Kupp, last 4 games. 2 for 29, 4 for 21, 2 for 48, 1 for 11. That's like one Cooper Kupp game. Right? What's that? 9 catches for, that's 50, 98. Yeah, that's essentially, that's either his week 5 or week 6 game strung across 4 weeks. Targeted 7 times in the 3 weeks leading up to the bye, and then just once, only took 14 snaps the last time out. That's right, he got banged up that one. So we'll forgive him the week 11 game. But week 7, 8, and 9 were not good for Cooper Kupp. Considering that we're still paying $8,000 for him, the projection's still there. There's been no downgrade on the back end. The model doesn't know necessarily that those games individually were bad. He's fine on FanDuel at $8,000. Wide receiver 5 by value, 4th by points. On DraftKings, it's a little more concerning. He's the same price on DK as he is on FanDuel. 4th by points, but 25th by value. Get a little bit more out of Puka. 3rd by points. I guess they're tied by points. I didn't notice that. Exact same projection for both those guys. That's interesting. 3rd and 4th by points, but Puka creeps up a little bit in value for 400 less. He's more expensive on the FanDuel slate. 200 more, puts him at wide receiver 6, wide receiver 15. But in a game, again, where we're just going to be seeing, I think, a good amount of passing, I like both those options, even at price. On FanDuel, where I'm going to be playing, it's a lot less problematic than it is on DraftKings having Cooper Kupp at this level. And if you get that low-end kind of performance, that's a lineup killer at $8,000. But Cooper Kupp has monster ceiling potential in a situation where there should be scoring through the air. Tutu's been limited, just 3 targets on 25 routes run in that Week 11 game where Cooper Kupp was limited. He saw 52 snaps, but just one catch on 3 targets, 17 yards. 4 catches for 13 the week before, 2 for 21. Hasn't been in the end zone since week 7. Hasn't had more than, well, he had the 4-catch game in week 9. Outside of that, it was weeks from week 6, 7, 8, and 11, 2 catches or fewer. Actually week 5 also. It's been a lot more limited for Tutu lately. Higbee, 23 routes run, 3 targets, 1 catch, 17 yards. Hasn't been targeted in the red zone since week 6. Tutu did get a target in the red zone. That one of his 3 targets came in the red zone in that last game. Puka had 3 targets in the red zone in the last game. 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Kupp hasn't been targeted in the red zone since week 8. It's just been weird and frustrating with this Rams passing game. They should be better than they are. Should be more productive for fantasy than they are. But in an any given week sense, I think there's upside. Tyler Higbee ranks 10th and 9th on DraftKings, 12th on FanDuel. A little bit better there at 3,500 on the back of some PPR value. Not a high priority tight end, but that's an okay tight end value. If you don't want to go to the Pat Freiermuth, you want to pay a little bit more for a better situation, maybe Tyler Higbee's on the board. Mom was looking forward to the Sims. He's saying, shut your mouth about what you think and what your model shows and just show us the damn Sims. Maybe there's a Sims surprise again at the end of the show. Maybe. Teaser. I think we covered everything on this one. Good game here. I like this game a lot for our purposes. KC Vegas. I'm concerned about this one. I don't know that I wouldn't call it trappy because I think it's kind of obvious given where the Vegas total is. All right, 42.5 points, 10-point spread. I was talking up Isaiah Pacheco earlier, and I think that's also not a secret. I don't think that's an unobvious spot going up against the 27th ranked rush defense that allows 4.5 yards per rush attempt. He's RB7 by my projections, RB5 by value, 7th and RB2 for value on FanDuel for only 6,600. Like him even better over there. But I think there's plenty of value, even if he's popular. I just don't care about individual popularity, especially a running back. Running back, I want volume and as much security as I can get. Security of the touches, which is obviously volume, but security for some equity for a touchdown, some potential for a 100-yard game, but give me 65, give me 70, something in approaching that neighborhood. Right now, Pacheco's putting up 61 a game on 14 carries over the course of the season, but he's seeing an uptick as the season's gone on. 89 yards on 19 carries last time, 66 yards on 16 carries against Miami in Week 9. Just 8 carries for 40 the week before that, 13 for 32, 16 for 62, 20 for 115 and a touchdown against the Jets way back in Week 4. I think there's enough for Pacheco, and again, I know I'm not breaking any new ground here. 117 yards allowed and a touchdown allowed per game, 4.5 yards per rush attempt by the opposing defense. Plenty of reason to believe that Pacheco succeeds, but the reason I wanted to start with him is just because I think, again, in a situation where the Vegas total's kind of seeing it as limited, the wide receivers are bad. We've seen these guys drop too many passes on Pat Mahomes this year. Outside of Travis Kelce, there's nobody in that passing game I really trust. I kind of like Rashee Rice. I think Justin Watson definitely has value at that 3,000 on DraftKings, but I do not trust these receivers. I think it's got a bit of an inhibiting effect on Patrick Mahomes. Quarterback 4 by points. He's got a 20-point projection. I'm not saying he's a bad play. I think you definitely go to Pat Mahomes and Chief Stacks, and I will. I'll have him on FanDuel where he's 87. QB4, QB7. I like that. But I shouldn't say I like that, but I like that better than DraftKings where he's QB16 by value. But I just worry that we get a clunker. 177 yards and 2 touchdowns on 43 pass attempts last time. Completed just 24 of them. Threw an interception. Just 185 yards, 2 touchdowns in the week before that, 20 of 30. I just don't love what he's working with. 4.1 yards per pass attempt that last game. Granted, that number goes way up if, who was it, MVS that dropped that ball at the end to win the game? That drop a yard from the end zone. It's the receivers. It's nothing about Patrick Mahomes. That said, Patrick Mahomes against the Raiders defense, I don't really have any issues with it. That's why he projects so well, because he's Patrick Mahomes. He can make anything happen on the football field. He can run the ball in. 296 rushing yards on the season. Now he's Pat Mahomes the second in the rushing attempts per game, so ignore that, but 6.2 yards per attempt. No touchdowns rushing on the season yet, but obviously a little bit of potential on the ground. I just don't love what we pair with him. Obviously, Kelce is fantastic. Tight end 1 by points on both sides. Tight end 3 by points per dollar on FanDuel for 8,300. He just succeeds. 8,200 on DraftKings is pretty expensive against that cap. Renders him tight end 13. Looking at the receiving core, Watson stands out. Salud. Joker just sneezed. Excuse me. Looking at the receiving core, Watson at 3,000 stands out. Wide receiver 5 on DraftKings by points per dollar. Wide receiver 42, though, by points. So at a certain point, the raw scoring does obviously become a factor. He put up on a touchdown, 53 yards in his last game. Was targeted 11 times. He came down with 5 of them. I saw that game. I know that's not all Pat Mahomes' fault. 2 red zone targets in that one. I don't have the drops on the screen. I don't know what they were. Okay, Joker. Look at the drop totals. Even Kelsey's got 4. 18 total on the season. An average of 3. For a team as bad as Vegas on the other side, Devontae's got 4, but I mean, that's on a ton of volume, obviously. And then the rest of these guys have 1 drop. Not that there's a ton of volume for most of these guys, but Jacoby Myers. If Patrick Mahomes had even Jacoby Myers to work with, this would be a much better offense, let alone Tyreek Hill. Well, that was a tragic mistake, I think, by this team. They need a Tyreek Hill type weapon in this passing game to really make this work the way it's supposed to. Just 170 yards a game, 1.2 touchdowns, though. 5.5 yards per attempt, 170.8 yards per game allowed by the KC defense through the air. But 1.2 touchdowns. It's a little bit of potential there. It's more, I guess that would qualify as what, break, don't bend? Which is weird. But a little bit of scoring potential. Obviously, Devontae could get in the end zone against anybody, could rack up a big yardage day against anybody, but he's expensive. He's priced like Devontae Adams, and not like necessarily Devontae Adams playing with Aiden O'Connell should be priced. Wide receiver 8 by fantasy points on DK, 9th on FanDuel, 38th on DraftKings at 7,800, 13th on FanDuel because he's cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. That's a bonus. I think it's more as an individual play. I don't love the idea of going to the Vegas stack. If I do, it's expensive because the 2 players that I want in it are either Devontae and Josh Jacobs or Devontae and Jacoby Myers. Myers isn't crazy expensive, but he's also not really a value. So then it becomes a quarterback +1 and O'Connell +1, which is fine. But if you want to double stack that, I don't love the pricing. But Devontae's good. Devontae's good on his own. 43 routes run last time out, 13 targets. Caught 7 of them for 82 and a touchdown. 28 routes run, 13 targets. The week before that, 6 catches for 86. It's Devontae Adams. We know what we're getting. Jacoby ran 35 routes in the last game. Targeted 5 times. Caught 4 of them for 49. 48 snaps with the offense. Similar numbers over the course of the season in terms of targeting. Outside of 3 outlier games of double-digit targets, it's more in the 4 to 7 target range. A lot of weeks of 4 or 5. Oh, sorry, 4 double-digit targets. He had 10 targets in week 1. I missed that one. That was the 2 touchdown game. But he's gotten in the end zone twice that time, and then 3 other weeks. There's upside for sure in Jacoby Myers. I just don't love where he's priced. It should probably be a little cheaper. He's still clinging to a little bit of a high price based on the touchdowns that came earlier in the season. If we're really being honest about it, he hasn't been in the end zone in the last 4 games. He hasn't been over 50 yards in those 4 games. Just 1 game of 4 catches. That was the most recent. 2 catches in 2 of the ones before that. 1 catch in the game before that in week 8. So maybe still a little bit of lingering cost. But that might make him a little unpopular. If he's not crazy popular, I think you can get there. But again, limited quarterback potential, decent pass defense. So, and not a great value price. Michael Mayer for 28 does show value on DraftKings, not at all on FanDuel for 49. He ran 28 routes last time, targeted 5 times. 5 targets also the week before that on 17 routes. He caught 3 of those for 19 yards and a touchdown. If you get the touchdown, you're fine. If you don't get the touchdown, you're probably burnt. It's not terrible on DraftKings because it's so cheap. So if you get 4 catches and 46 yards at in a PPR sense, it's okay. But you really kind of need that touchdown overall. You definitely need it from Mayer on the FanDuel board. Hunter Renfrow, just a terrible season. Trey Tucker, there's not much down board there. And then, yeah, just the mixed bag of this. I know I kind of just leapt out of the wide receiver pool here on the KC side. Outside of that Justin Watson appeal just for being 3,000. Everybody's just a grab bag of not good receivers, which is kind of Andy Reid's style, I guess. Mahomes plus Kelsey, it's very expensive. It's the obvious way to go. The two of them and Pacheco, I think, is perfectly fine. As I say that, though, what was Pacheco's targeting? Just one each of the last 2 weeks, or each of the last 2 games for Pacheco. One target. Did run 18 routes 2 weeks ago. 6, 4, and 4 targets in weeks 6, 7, and 8, though. I think that idea is enough to support the passing game value. And then no McKinnon. So that potentially supports that. We didn't talk about CEH, who does gain a little bit of potential here. 4,000 on the DraftKings slate. Not a great projection. 29th by value, 35th by value on FanDuel. 2 carries last week for 20 yards. Hasn't had more than 3 carries since a 15-carry game in week 3. Had 55 yards and a touchdown that week. Since the ascendance of Isaiah Pacheco, who also had 15 carries for 62 and a touchdown in that week 3 game, it's been really limited for CEH. But there is potential there, given the gap in the personnel. That's where he picks up a little bit of projection. Could go a little bit north of this. I'll write him down. No, I won't, because I threw the pen when I was doing that. NBA, here's another one. All right, CEH he'll get a look too. It won't be more than a half a point, but it might make a little bit of value-based difference. Did I talk about Josh Jacobs in any kind of specific sense? I don't think I did. He's Josh Jacobs. He gets to touch the ball a lot. 14 carries last time, 39 yards. In the 2 games before that, week 9 against the Giants, 26 carries, 98, and 2 touchdowns. And then 27 carries against the Jets for 116, no touchdown. 4 games on the season with 20 or more carries. In the last, since week 3, he hasn't had fewer than the 11 carries he had in week 7. And outside of that, the 14 carries he had against Miami was the lowest. So there's tons of volume for Josh Jacobs. The talent is still there. It's mostly based on volume. Not mostly. It's talent plus volume. Running back 13-15 on DraftKings. 13-10 on FanDuel, a little bit more appealing for 71. .3 yards per rush attempt on the season for Jacobs, 4.3 for Pacheco. That's the difference I was trying to illustrate with saying that it's mostly volume-based. It mostly is unfair to Josh Jacobs, but you can see the difference there. The 3.3 yards per attempt on 18 carries a game versus 4.3 yards per attempt on 14 per game. Just a more efficient running back in Pacheco. We did these guys basically up and down. So again, there's nothing wrong with Rashee Rice. 55 is appropriate. Not good, but appropriate. Wide receiver 30s on FanDuel. 30s by points on DraftKings, but 50s by points per dollar is not good. And then MVS, Kadarius Toney's out. So, you might see a little bit of a rise for either one of these guys. Sky Moore, MVS, but none of those guys are comfy. Richie James Jr. is back to health. 3,000 on DraftKings, wide receiver 76, though. Maybe he sees north of 2 points in the end when we reproject it. Maybe sees a little bit of action with special teams in the return game, but outside of a extreme dart throw, I don't think you're dealing with anything there. Keep this thing rolling. Good one to talk about. I think this is our second best remaining game. And then we do Cleveland, Denver, Carolina, Tennessee, and then we'll finish up with Buffalo and Philly. And then maybe, if we're lucky, somebody ran some sims. We'll be able to take a look. As I'm teasing it, I'm hoping that the sims actually ran and completed. Not that AceMind has any issues with that or fails. It's just from time to time, especially when I'm doing it in a hurry right before a show, I tend to fuck something up. So let's hope I didn't. And we'll actually have some results, maybe, if that happened, to look at. CJ Stroud, top of the board. Love that option. But just as good, Trevor Lawrence on the other side. This will be a fun duel. Hopefully for years to come. QB5, QB3 on DraftKings. Trevor Lawrence, QB1 by points per dollar at 6,400. I don't know if his price didn't go up at all, but it didn't go up enough. Last time, 262 and 2 touchdowns, 24 of 32 passing, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. Still not a massive ceiling game. There's 350 and 4 touchdowns potential in Trevor Lawrence any given game. But that came in conjunction with Travis Etienne carrying the ball 14 times for 52 yards. He found Calvin Ridley 7 times for 103 and both touchdowns. So it gives Calvin Ridley a big day. That's a little encouraging. The week before, he found Christian Kirk for 6 catches and 104 yards. There's life in this Jacksonville passing game. They're going up against the defense allowing 7 yards per pass attempt, 240 a game. Just 10 touchdowns on the season. But there's plenty of yardage, plenty of opportunity there. They do get to the quarterback pressure 25% of the time, 24 sacks on the year. A little bit more pressure than C.J. Stroud will be having to worry about. Jacksonville's defense has picked off a few more passes. Maybe Stroud's got to worry a little bit more downfield. Lawrence got to look around a little bit more before he throws the ball. Stroud's been amazing. 296 yards a game, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 8.3 yards per pass attempt as a rookie. Justifiable or not, was getting a little bit of MVP kind of buzz, which may be crazy, but he's had a dynamite year. Not even for a rookie, just has had a good year. 9.1 intended air yards per attempt versus the 7.2 for Trevor Lawrence. You can see a little difference there. Lawrence has thrown 11 touchdowns, just 238 yards a game. A little bit more conservative of an offense, 33.2 attempts. So you get more volume, more potential upside out of C.J. Stroud. I love the options that both quarterbacks have to work with. Both guys have run the ball in twice, but neither one is what I would call a rushing quarterback. 2.3 attempts a game, 5 attempts a game for Lawrence, putting up roughly 5 yards per attempt, 3.7 for Stroud. A little bit of edge, but that's not why you play them. You just play them because they've got excellent projections and very, very good weapons to work with. QB 5-3 on FanDuel for CJ Stroud, 3-1 for Trevor Lawrence. You can just show this and be like, all right, just play their skill players with them. But we'll take it quick. Etienne, like I said, good game the last time out in terms of the touches. The production, 52 yards and an additional 7 yards on 3 catches, targeted 3 times. 9 carries for 35 the week before, 24 carries for 79 in Pittsburgh in week 8. Had 3 straight 2-touchdown games, weeks 5, 6, and 7. There's nothing to argue with the 17 to 27 touches a game that he's gotten over the last handful of games. 30 touches in week 5. He's a volume monster, if nothing else. 7,100 ranks him RB2, RB3 on DraftKings. RB2, RB8 on FanDuel for 86. So from the Jags side on DraftKings, you're getting your QB3, QB1 points value, RB2, RB3 points value. In addition to a wide receiver 9-2, tight end 5-3. This is going to be, I imagine they're going to be popular, given where they're priced. This is a go-to option, in my opinion. Even with popularity, by the way. I don't care if a stack gets popular. I just don't care. You want to pay attention overall across a portfolio of 150 lineups to how you're leveraged. You want to be above, below the field, leverage it properly. You don't want to over-own the guys who are crazy popular without good cause. But it does not matter where those guys are popular, because you'll have value and you'll be able to get to and pay for guys that are expensive, or you'll be able to make differentiated plays than the bulk of the field. So it just works. And the same's true on the other side. I mean, Stroud's expensive on his own. Not much difference on FanDuel, but he's expensive on DraftKings at 77. I hope that renders him unpopular on DraftKings. I think that makes him an even better tournament play. Going up against a defense that's allowed 16 touchdowns, 250 yards a game. Doesn't put up enough pressure, doesn't sack the quarterback enough. CJ Stroud week. Dameon Pierce, likely to come back. I don't remember if he's been confirmed back yet or not. Still questionable. Ankle injury last 3 games he's been out. Singletary's kind of taking advantage. Whoops. Come on. Last 2 games for Singletary. In week 10, 30 carries for 150 and a touchdown. Last week, 22 carries for 112 and a touchdown. So when I say kind of taking advantage, I mean he has grabbed the goddamn reins in this opportunity and kind of run with it. Dameon Pierce, for what he's worth, in week 8 had 12 carries, 46 yards. Week 6, 13 carries, 34 yards. I feel like this probably, given the step forward, remains the Devin Singletary show. At least for another week. Even if Pierce is out there, it'll take a couple carries away. Certainly don't think he gets 30, especially if we're expecting him to throw the ball. But 18 carries, an additional 3 targets, something like that, is reasonable. So I think Singletary's the play. RB 21-24 though, 20-23 on FanDuel. You're just not getting much. You're not getting any better out of Dameon Pierce, and I think the volume stays here. And I think you can. What's the target? Before I say that, 2 targets each of the last 5 weeks. Playable-ish in stacks. Singletary, I'd probably prefer him on his own, like where I'm not going to CJ Stroud stacks. That's just a backdoor into the Houston offense, maybe. I don't like it as much as a part of stacks. It's mostly coming on the ground for Singletary. Has not been over 13 yards all season, has not been over 2 catches all season. Most games, 1 or 2 targets a game, despite running double-digit routes every single week of the season, except for week 8 and 1. High priority running back, and an okay play, but not for value. Like if you're just plugging him in for some raw point potential, I think it's fine, but it's not like it's a high priority option there. Tank Dell, pretty high priority option. Wide receiver 6 by points, 15th by value on DraftKings. Wide receiver 3 across the board on FanDuel for 7,800. He is extremely good at football. He and CJ Stroud have developed a hell of a connection too. 8 catches for 149 and a touchdown last time out. Caught just 6 of 14 in week 10, but put up 56 yards and a touchdown. Week 9 caught 6 of 11, 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Keep giving me 100 yards and you can not catch a few of those passes, and I'm fine with it. Give me a touchdown on top of it. You can do whatever you want with the additional passes. 6 to 8 catches, potential for 100 yards, potential for a score. Multiple scores is on the board. Love the option for Tank Dell. Some of that came with in week 10 with Nico Collins out, but that was actually the limited game. That was not limited, but that was the lower end of those 3 games. That was the game he put up 56 yards. So as like the featured guy, got a little bit more limited where when Nico's been out there. In week 9, when Tank had 114 and 2 scores, 6 catches, Nico ran 33 routes, targeted 5 times, 3 catches for 54. He also scored a touchdown. And then last week coming back, he had 11 targets on 30 routes run, 7 catches for 65, while Tank went for 8 catches, 149 and a touchdown. That is a good multi-headed wide receiver pair. I think you can go Stroud +2 with both of those guys. I would not skip Dalton Schultz all that often. Or I would build additional stacks so that I could have an equal share of Dalton Schultz is probably the correct way to say that. Tons of targets in the red zone for Dalton Schultz. We've been talking about him as a good tight end option, a decent value tight end all season long. Got in the end zone last week, 2 catches for 32 yards, 2 targets in the red zone, 3 targets in the red zone in week 9. Wasn't targeted in the red zone in week 8 or in week 10. Those are the only 2 weeks of the entire season that he wasn't targeted in the red zone. 5,400, tight end 4 by points, 12 by value on DraftKings, 4 and 6 on FanDuel, a little bit better on FanDuel. Robert Woods, wide receiver 30, but wide receiver 7 by value on DK, 4,000. 30 and 24 on FanDuel, not the same play. But looking at Woods, multiple targets in the red zone in 3 games on the season. A target in the red zone in every game that he played except for week 3 and week 1. They had a bye in week 7 that he didn't play 2 weeks. Came back, saw just 1 catch, 3 targets on 26 routes run in week 10, but then bounced back 31 routes, 8 targets, 5 catches, 44 yards against Arizona last time out. So I think there's some sneaky potential here for Robert Woods. I shouldn't even say sneaky. I haven't seen what his ownership looks like on DK. It's just a good value play. Let's put it that way. If I'm building a bunch of Houston stacks, he's definitely a part of a lot of them. So I like all 4 of these options in their passing game. I kind of still like Singletary in their rushing game. I love Stroud. I don't think we're going John Mechie. That gets a little bit thin unless something happens to one of these other guys. I don't think you go in the Brevin Jordan, Xavier Hutchinson, any of those guys route. Those guys just kind of come out of the player pool. Mechie probably makes it into the pool, but not into very many lineups. Calvin, like I said, wide receiver 9-2 on DraftKings, by the way, for 6,000. 8-2 on FanDuel for 71. Projects great. Got in the end zone twice last week. That's all I need to see. Signs of life is all I need to see from a guy like Calvin, who I trusted quite a bit coming into the year. Had a bad game in week 10. That was against San Francisco. 2 catches for 20 on 3 targets. Decent week 8 against Pittsburgh before their bye. 6 for 83 on 10 targets. So 2 of the last 3 games have been respectable. If he'd gotten in the end zone that week, that would have been a good week. Had a 7-catch game for 122 against Buffalo back in week 5. 101 and a touchdown on 8 catches against Indy all the way back in week 1. It hasn't been a monster year for Calvin, but I still like him as the first read option and the wide receiver spot. I still like his overall ability. Running 12.7 yard ADOT. Lost track of which line I was looking at there. Plenty of potential for Calvin. If you're going to Trevor Lawrence stacks, Calvin is my first wide receiver click. I don't know if it's Etienne after that, because I think he's involved enough to support inclusion in the stack, of course. Christian Kirk. Target, it's probably still Christian Kirk as my second favorite. So it's Lawrence Ridley, Lawrence Kirk, Lawrence Ridley Kirk. Probably get to Etienne more before I get to Ingram. I'll have plenty of Etienne on his own, and then I'll include him in stacks. And I feel like I get him a little bit more than Ingram. But Ingram looks really good. Tight end 5, tight end 3 on DraftKings, 5 and 4 on FanDuel. So just looking at the numbers, Kirk had 6 targets last time out, just caught 3 of them for 48, but had a 100-yard game on 6 catches in that San Francisco game. Ingram's drawn 7 targets in against San Francisco, then 6 against Tennessee. Caught 4 in each game, but just limited 12 yards, 29 yards. Had a big 10-catch, 88-yard game against Pittsburgh in Week 8. That was on 10 targets. The volume in terms of the targeting has really been there consistently all season. He was targeted 5 times in Week 1, then went 4 weeks with 8 targets, 2 weeks with 7 after that, had the 10-target game against Pittsburgh. Bye week, came back 7 and 6 targets. So he hasn't had fewer than 6 targets since that Week 1 game. It's just a matter of the yardage, the touchdown, or the lack thereof. He's been a little bit more frustrating than he has productive this year, but that's why he's so cheap. He's a really affordable, incredibly skilled guy. So, given the idea that they're going to throw to him that many times, I got to keep going to that spot. And with a quarterback that I'm going to want to get to a lot, it just makes sense to me that we're going to be going to Evan Ingram here. Probably is my 4th favorite option, though. Ridley, Kirk, Etienne, then Ingram. Zay Jones, wide receiver 21 by points per dollar at 3,900 on the DraftKings slate. If he plays, that shouldn't be ignored. He played last time, ran 26 routes, targeted 4 times, caught them all for just 20 yards. Didn't play 4 straight games before that, had a bye week in there. In week 5, he caught 3 for 23 and a touchdown. There's moderate playability here, if he's out there. That said, he's, what's his injury? It is a knee. Limited practice on Friday. He practiced 3 times this week, though. Seems like he's got a decent chance to get out there. It's a limit. It's not a high priority target by any means, but if he's out there, it's just another warm body to throw to with a little bit of talent. So if I'm building a bunch of lineups as a tournament dart, I think he's perfectly fine. Nobody below him is at all reasonable. Cleveland and Denver, everybody's favorite. Been to Cleveland? I don't recall ever having been to Denver. As some of you no doubt have heard, I went to my buddy JP's wedding out in Cleveland a few years ago. I had a great time. It's a fun city. Small city, but fun. We had a great time. Stayed at the casino. The wedding was at like this big warehouse of those little artist pods, if you've ever seen those. And then they had like a big event space. So we had a blast there, had a good time back at the casino for the reception. Everybody was staying in the hotel, so it was one of those where everybody's just running around crazy after the wedding. Pretty good time. Mamba's saying, I may put my biggest bet of the year on the Chiefs. I'm just hoping I can grab the number at 9. That would be pretty solid. Demon Nat's laughing at something. I have no idea how far back that goes. 1025, that was, a while ago. I'm going to take credit for it, making Demon Nat laugh. It's probably somebody else in the chat, but whatever. Crosby out on D is a big deal, I think. Mamba and Beantown agree on that. As you guys know, I don't really pay that much attention to defense. Vegas just kind of takes care of all those things for me. So, happy to take the note. But, yeah, no real overall opinion on that. It's all cooked into the Vegas number when it comes down to individuals on defense. And I just don't find it worth trying to quantify. But notable absences on defense are always worth pointing out to me. So I appreciate that, guys. Let's talk Denver-Cleveland. 36-point total. 1-point spread. Yeesh. 15th ranked Cleveland defense against the run, 4.1 yards per attempt, and 5.4 yards per pass attempt shouldn't be ignored, especially against a pretty limited passing attack. Russ Wilson, QB 14-15 on DraftKings, 14-17 on FanDuel. Fewer than 30 pass attempts a game, just 206 yards a game, 19 touchdowns on the season. The touchdown total's good. The yardage is weak. Only 4 interceptions. I don't know. I don't love the Russ option. Not against a defense that I've kind of been avoiding in a low-scoring game, a low-total game. Receivers that I liked better coming into the season, or at least, actually I should flip that. Jerry Jeudy I liked better coming into the season. Cortland Sutton I didn't like as much coming into the season. And that's kind of flipped for me. It's flipped price-wise here as well. I should take a look at that too. I think I say that every week about these two. It's probably time to downgrade Jerry Jeudy on the back end a little bit so that he just doesn't come up. A couple of things to look at this week. You might see that you will see this, I'm going to say, flip again. I think I did it last week too, and I just forgot. I did it manually and forgot to change it on the back end. But Sutton should be the higher projected receiver at this point. So these guys will flip, but they'll stay fairly consistent. It's not going to be a monster jump, and it's not going to jump the value. So it's not like either one of them is going to become a good, or it's not like Sutton's going to become a good play. Jeudy will get worse. Marvin Mims, just not all that much value there. Mims had 3 targets on 26 routes run last time out. Caught 2 of them for 12 yards. Ran 30 routes, was targeted once in the game before that. Didn't catch it. I just don't think they like him. Like, personally. It's got to be personal at this point. Kids out there running wind sprints up and down the field, and they're just not throwing them the ball. Had the monster game in it's all the way back in week 2 at this point. The 2 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown. It's really a monster play. But I think the myth of Marvin Mims is kind of dead since it's been since week 2 that we've had any kind of production. I skipped over the running backs. I talked about this situation at the top of the show as being annoyingly split, but potentially appealing. It's kind of how I see it. I prefer that side of the rushing attack rather than going to Javonte against the Cleveland D. Ford last game, 12 carries, 31 yards, but got in the end zone for a touchdown. 3 carries in the red zone is encouraging. Has 6 carries in the red zone, had 2 in week 9, 1 in week 10, and then the 3 last week. It's encouraging because Kareem Hunt was just getting fed the ball in the red zone. 3 touches in the red zone, or 3 carries in the red zone for 4 straight weeks from weeks 6 through 9. Then had 2 in week 10, 1 last week. Had touchdowns in weeks 6 through 10, with a 2-touchdown game in week 7, and then 1 touchdown in each of the other games. Has been carrying the ball 10 to 14 times in every game since week 6. It's a pretty firm split. And Kareem Hunt does have touchdown upside. So I kind of think that this is about right, where neither one of them looks great, but both of them are playable. And then it just becomes a matter of hitting the guy who got in the end zone. Obviously, if you have Kareem Hunt and he's that guy, that's got more value than having Jerome Ford and having him be that guy. But either one of them could do it. Either one of them is playable. Hunt lands 12th by value on DraftKings, 18th by value on FanDuel, 21st by value for Ford on FanDuel, 19th on DraftKings. Javonte, RB15, RB10, definitely in play. 5,700, ranks 13-point projection. 15th and 9th on FanDuel. I just don't love attacking this defense. I think they are actually a pretty good defense. It was a little bit of a debate early in the season, but they've held up. 4.1 yards per rush attempt over the course of the year, 99 yards a game, giving up a touchdown a game. So, I don't think you get 100 yards and a touchdown, but maybe 65 yards and a touchdown. As long as you get Javonte into the end zone for these prices, it's all right. Landing him about here, that's like a 60 yard and a touchdown kind of a score. So, I could see it. It won't be my top priority running back by a long shot, but I could see it. I declined to select him in a flex spot for 64. I actually went and changed my defense so that I had another, I think, 200 to spend so that I could not have to use him in my hand-built placeholder on FanDuel. Not that means I won't have him. I will. It means I don't like him. Not in the way that the Broncos don't like Marvin Mims. I just don't like him for fantasy. David Njoku, we talked about top of the show. Tight end 6, tight end 5 for value on DraftKings. 7 across the board on FanDuel. Going up against the team allowing 1.8 touchdowns a game, 240 yards a game, 7.4 yards per pass attempt on the season. Definitely some potential for Njoku to have a day. Last time out, 15 targets. Playing with DTR. If you get anywhere near that kind of volume, it's obviously potential for a very big day. He didn't score, but he put up 7 catches, 56 yards. The week before that against Baltimore, 6 for 58, didn't score, but 9 targets. His target volume since week 6 has been 9, 8, 6, 9, and the monster 15. But the yards per target in that game, obviously, since he didn't put up a huge game, just 3.7 yards per target. 6.4 yards per target in the 9-target game. He caught 6 of those for 58, and he scored in weeks 8 and 9. 4 catches in both weeks, 77 yards in week 8, and a touchdown was a lot better than 26 yards and a touchdown. But we'll take it. For these value prices, I'll take 20-something yards and a touchdown. I'd prefer... Why does he not rank well? Because that's Elijah Moore, you idiot. See what I said about the clicking in the wrong spot? Damn, that was dumb. For these value prices, as I was saying, I'll take my 20 yards and a touchdown. I'd rather have my 15 targets and roll the dice for 100 yards and a touchdown. But this is a good price on Njoku. Cooper had 8 targets last week, 9 the week before, 5 before that, 11 was the season high. Yeah, 11 back in week 8 was his season high. He caught 6 of them for 89 yards. 139 yards and a touchdown in week 9. 98 yards, no score in week 10. Just 34 yards on 4 catches, 8 targets last time. I think it's more product of the quarterback overall. Other wide receiver options, Elijah Moore. Get the ball in his hands, he can make some stuff happen. 6 catches on 7 targets. for 60 yards last week. A touchdown in week 10, 5 catches on 7 targets for 44. Before that, he was having kind of a clunker of a season. Had only been over 50 yards once, no touchdowns before that. So just 1 touchdown on the season, but pulled it together a little bit over the last 2 weeks. Cedric Tillman, not a lot of volume to talk about. 6 targets over the last 3 games, 2 catches. So really, it's these 3 if you're going to this team, and then probably the running backs. The Judy Sutton thing. Judy hauled in 5 of 7 last time out for 58. Caught 3 of 3 for 35 the week before. Just 1 touchdown all season. Sutton, meanwhile, has a touchdown in 5 straight games. He's only had 2 games all season out of their 10 games that he hasn't scored. 1 touchdown in every one of those other games. That said, he hasn't been over 100 yards. He's been over 70 yards just once. That was a 76-yard game, 6 catches for 76 and a score in week 7. And then in week 3, he had an 8-catch game for 91 and a touchdown on 11 targets. That was tied for his target high. Against Buffalo in week 10, he had 11 targets, caught 8 of them for 53 and a touchdown. But obvious touchdown connection with Russ Wilson, if nothing else. What did I say that was? 9 touchdowns on the season? So 9 of Russ's 19 have gone to Courtland Sutton. The hell did all the other ones go? Jaleel McLaughlin's got 2. They came back in weeks 4 and 5. McLaughlin, if you're thinking about it as a dart throw, it's been really limited. He had a couple big plays that were nice. But the last couple of weeks, 1 carry last week, 5. Did catch 5 balls, 5 of 5 for just 14 yards, though. Needs to break off that big play to have any kind of value. Jaleel McLaughlin, the running back. That's why we kind of skipped over him. Samaji, similar story. It's probably another one to maybe take a look at giving that to one or the other of these guys. We'll take a look at this Jaleel and Samaji split. He did have 7 catches on 7 targets for 60, though, in that same game. I think it's justifiable to have them both around here. Maybe they should both be a point lower. This is obviously a little bit of a PPR bonus there, but yeah, maybe I just bring them both down a little bit. I don't know. Obviously, on DK, if either one of them comes out and puts up 5 or 7 catches, Piron's game was more valuable because he put up 60 yards with it. McLaughlin only had 14 yards. Samaji's the guy that's more the actual regular target. He ran 13 routes, targeted 7 times. McLaughlin's 5 targets came on just 7 routes. Ran 4 routes the week before, while Samaji ran 12. So like the game plan is more around Samaji, where McLaughlin's just more put the kid in, see if he can hit a home run for us. Also going up against the defense, allowing just 4.1 yards per rush attempt again. Less than 100 yards a game. So I don't know how much downboard Denver running backs we want to get to. Troutman, I don't think we're going there. Little Jordan, I don't think we're going that direction. Not really showing much value, much point scoring upside. So kind of limited on the Denver side. Very limited on the Cleveland side, outside of maybe some David Njoku value. I think Njoku might be my favorite overall play from this game. Kudos to whoever brought that up early in the show. Javonte is decent as well, even though it's a good rush defense. Just cheap. We just got to get through the Carolina-Tennessee game, then we can talk about Philly and Buffalo and look at some sim results, maybe, and then get the heck out of here. Rest my voice, maybe catch up on the latest episode of For All Mankind. Anybody watch that out there? For All Mankind on Apple? Good show. Give it my solid recommendation. It's a alternate history type show. I've probably talked about it before. I tend to repeat myself. But it's cool. It's without giving anything really away, in the pilot episode, the first episode, it's back in the 60s, and the entire premise of the show spins off the idea the Soviets beat us to the moon. And it just goes from there, and it's just, real world alternate history. It's kind of cool. It's also potentially could be spun off into a prequel for, or like an origin story for the universe of The Expanse, just because of that's like a real world, quote unquote, several hundred years into the future, but like our solar system kind of grounded in terms of like Mars has been colonized. Let's say Elon Musk colonizes Mars, declares himself the emperor of Mars in the next 20 years, and then extrapolate from there to another 300 years. That's a totally different show. That's The Expanse. They're not at all related. But the way that For All Mankind's trajectory is going, you could kind of draw that connection if you wanted to. And it would be fun if they were at all produced by the same company or anything, and they did that. Maybe Apple buys The Expanse, which is now defunct, and folds it in. That'd be fun. They would need the writer's permission. Those are based on books. Good books, too, The Expanse. So that's 2 series recommendations in one. If you haven't seen The Expanse, which is now over, go back in time and check that out. And For All Mankind is ongoing. I think season 4 right now on Apple. This football show brought to you by Apple. No, it's not. Probably get sued just saying that. Not that anybody's watching or going to report it, but probably shouldn't say that. I was joking. Greg Biancone says Khrushchev ended up banging Marilyn Monroe, not JFK. It's not that alternate. But no, post-JFK world. So I guess pretty sure JFK was still assassinated in the timeline of the show. I think the skew is with the moon landing. Yeah, like different trajectories, different presidencies. Technology arrives earlier because it's driven by the space race and everything. The space race goes on, colonizing the moon, and on and on. Like we should have done. Should be on Mars by now. Great tragedy of the 20th and 21st century, how far behind we fell in becoming a multiplanetary species. But anyway, one of these days we'll be playing football games against Mars. But for right now, that'll be fun. You think Coors Field is a problem for baseball games. Wait till we have a baseball game where we got to deal with different gravity. Don't think any of us will be here to see it. I can't get myself out of this, this space conversation. Bryce Young, don't go there. I mean, you can, but I don't like it. 4,900 on DraftKings. He does rank QB 8 by value, QB 15 by raw points, though. And we've played this game before with Bryce Young. We've had him projected better than this and failed miserably. Going up against the defense that's allowing 230 yards a game through the air, 7.3 yards per pass attempt, 12 touchdowns on the season, just pressuring the quarterback 18% of the time. That's on both sides. Neither one of these mediocre defenses is doing all that much to inflate the projections for either one of these young quarterbacks. They're both okay values on DK. Neither one of them's all that appealing on FanDuel. Neither one of them looks all that great to me. Will Levis throwing the ball 31 times a game, Bryce Young throwing it 35 times a game, completing 62% of his passes, but just 187 yards a game. And I believe that's a league low among qualified starting quarterbacks, 5.3 yards per pass attempt. This is really low. 6.4 intended air yards per pass attempt. Kyler Murray is approaching double his intended air yards per pass attempt, completing just 3.1 air yards per pass attempt. So a lot of this volume just goes to little dink and dunk kind of passes. 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. There's really not a lot to see here. Levis at least has a DeAndre Hopkins to throw to, if nothing else. That's got appeal. He's got a decent projection, but he's pricey-ish. Wide receiver 16 by points, but 27 by value on DraftKings, 16 and 22 on FanDuel. Nobody else showing value in that passing game at all. Not the tight end. Not Kyle Phillips, even at 3,000. Maybe that needs a look. What was Phillips? Where the hell did it go to Marvin Mims? I typed the word Phillips and search brought me to Marvin Mims. Did I not put him in here? That would be weird. We can get to it quickly. Ran 9 routes last time out, 1 target, caught it for 10 yards. 4 catches for 68 in week 9, 3 catches for 61 in week 10. McKinney. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 7 routes run last week. 1 target, 1 catch, 7 yards. Has exactly 1 catch in each of the last 4 games. Scored a touchdown back in week 8. Has 3 on the season. Maxed out at 5 catches back in week 4. That was one of the weeks in which he scored a touchdown. Chris Moore, last time out, ran 13 routes. Targeted once. Caught it 49 yards. Very, very limited options here. Don't like. Love. Not in a this week's necessarily fantasy sense for DeAndre Hopkins, just in a vacuum. How can you not love DeAndre Hopkins? For everything he's given us over the years. Adam Thielen, like I said, for the Tennessee side, at least they've got DeAndre Hopkins to throw to. At this point in their careers, Adam Thielen is no DeAndre Hopkins. They rank similarly, though. Wide receiver 11, wide receiver 31. He projects better on DraftKings, better on FanDuel. I don't really like the option, though. Thielen, for as good as the start to the season was, where the hell is he? There he is. Hasn't been in the end zone now since week 6. Had 4 touchdowns from week 2 through week 6. 1 each in each of those weeks except for week 4. He was over 100 yards 3 times. In each of those games, he caught 11 passes. Had 14, 13, and 13 targets. The target volume hasn't changed. But the completions have fallen off from that level of volume. The yardage, he hasn't been over since the 115 and a touchdown in week 6 against Miami. Hasn't been over the 74 yards that he put up last week. 8 catches, 74 yards. It's all right. That's where you get some of those points from, is just, the sheer volume, the catches. But needs to turn it into a touchdown, needs to turn it into a little bit more yardage to really pay that off in a tournament-winning kind of a sense. Thielen feels more like a get-you-over-the-cash line receiver than he does a tournament winner. Wide receiver 11 by points, but 31 by value. On FanDuel, looking a little better. Wide receiver 11, 8. That's more playable, 75 versus 73 against the different cap. DJ Shark, Jonathan Mingo, you're just dealing with home run shots at that point. DJ ran 28 routes, wasn't targeted last time out, 44 snaps, 26 routes, drew 3 targets, caught 2 of them for 9 yards and a touchdown in week 9. 3 catches for 42 and a touchdown back in week 5. 4 catches for 86 and a touchdown back in week 3. That was his target high, 11 targets that week. He's had half as many as his high after that, 6 targets in weeks 5 and 6. I think he's the clear number 2. For whatever that gets you. Mingo, 6 targets, but only caught 1 of them for 6 yards last week. 7 targets, but only caught 3 of them for 20 yards a week before that. 4 targets, but only caught 1 of them for 5 yards a week before that. Has to go back to week 8 to even find an efficient game. 4 catches on 5 targets for 62 yards, 12.4 yards per target that week. Has been below 3 yards per target in each of the last 3 weeks. Who else we want to talk about here? Tommy Tremble. Could this be Tommy Tremble week? For those of you willing to go to the Panthers here? Hayden Hurst out. Presumably Tommy Tremble, the lead tight end. Ran 21 routes last week. 3 targets, caught 1 of them for 4 yards and a touchdown. Targets in the red zone in 3 of the last 4 games, just 1 each. Out snaps, out routes, and out targets, both of Ian Thomas and Stephen Sullivan when they've been on the field, or when they've all been active. In week 11, it was 45 snaps with the offense for Tommy Tremble, 16 for Ian Thomas, and 11 for Stephen Sullivan. Sullivan had 1 target, caught it for 20 yards. Thomas was untargeted. Thomas ran 5 routes, Sullivan ran 8. If you had to read into it downboard, it's probably Tommy Tremble 1 as a receiver, Stephen Sullivan as the second tight end receiver. But Ian Thomas will be out there a little bit more than Stephen Sullivan. And I don't think you need to get that cute at the tight end position to go down to these guys where it's 2,500 and you may or may not get one target out of it. There's enough value on the board that I don't think you need to get anywhere near that cute. But if you did, and if you had to go away from the poorly projected Tommy Tremble, who is the most viable out of those options, it's probably Sullivan over Thomas. But I'm just kind of wasting time even talking about that, I think. Not much on the board in this game. Derrick Henry is always on the board. RB8 across the board on DK, 8 and 12 on FanDuel. Perfectly happy to pay 78 for him, but I'll take him at 64 on DraftKings anytime. Don't like this situation at all. They're cheap. I guess they do have that going for them. Miles Sanders carried the ball 11 times for 50 last time out. Ran 11 routes, targeted once. Chuba Hubbard, 10 carries, 57 yards. Targeted twice on 14 routes. Caught them both 8 yards. It's just like a direct split between two mediocre running backs. They are who they look like. I have no desire to get to either one of those running backs in this situation. Tajee Spears actually is more appealing than either one of those guys. 4,400 on DraftKings, 51 on FanDuel. 8.6 projection. I guess Miles Sanders technically outprojects him a little bit, but I think there's more talent here. Spears carried it 4 times for 14 yards last time out. Ran 6 routes, targeted twice, caught both of them for 12. Had a 4-catch, 42-yard game through the air with 5 additional carries for 18 more yards. You're dealing with 9, 10 touches at the max. There's talent behind the touches, but probably needs a little bit more of a full-time job to really be playable. It clings to relevance at these prices. There's a little bit there, but you're talking about a very thin dart throw, and just to hammer it on one last time, I prefer not to take my dart throws at the running back spot. I think we covered all of these guys. Let's get the hell out of this game. Wrap it up with the fun one that we left for last. Highest total on the board. The highest overall projected players on the board. From a fantasy sense, outside of popularity, but again, I just don't care. Ownership popularity is the most over-discussed thing in fantasy sports. By far. Outside of maybe like revenge narrative and shit like that. It's the most over-discussed quantifiable thing in daily fantasy sports. Leverage is important. Individual ownership, even like positional ownership on a stack outside of just informing the context in which you're getting that leverage, is really not as critical as it's made out to be. You want to have a lot of the good chalk. You just do. You need it. It's good chalk because it's good. That's why it gets popular. It's even more important in NBA. NFL's more variant. But you want to have a solid foundation of the obvious. Don't overthink this shit. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. Monsters. 49-point total, 3-point spread. Philly just basically getting the home field advantage here. Gotta love that. Philly going up against a rush defense allowing 4.5 yards per rush attempt. 6.3 yards per pass attempt puts them in the middle. It's flipped a little bit here with their rush defense for Philly landing at 12th, 4.0 yards per rush attempt. And 9th against the pass, 6.1 yards per pass attempt. Philly's good on both sides. If you were looking for a vulnerability, the Bills against the run is probably it. So that spells upside for DeAndre Swift. Have to expect him to be popular. There's obviously monster potential around either one of these guys. The issue with Swift kind of becomes Jalen Hurts maybe taking his touchdowns away. There's always challenges around that. But Swift has found his value. Last time out, 12 carries, 76 yards, had a touchdown. Just one carry in the red zone. Encouragingly, he did get 6 carries in the red zone in week 9, 4 carries in the red zone in week 8. Has had carries in the red zone every single week of the season except for week 1. 7 carries in the red zone in the monster week 2. That was the 175 yards and a touchdown, 28 carries game. Hasn't been over 100 yards since the Week 3 game, 16 carries for 130. But plenty of touches here. 15 last week, 20 the week before, 19, 18, 20, going back in time. A clear-cut premium running back. RB 11, 17 on DK, 11 across the board on FanDuel. 110 yards a game allowed, just 0.5 touchdowns. So another bend, don't break in terms of the scoring defense. But I think DeAndre Swift, we can get there with yardage. We can get there with scoring. So I like the option. James Cook just landing 16-20 on DK, 16-14 on FanDuel. Cookie comes up with a good amount of touches also. Can't really quibble with 17 carries for 4 targets last time out. Caught 3 of those targets for 29 yards and a touchdown. 12 carries for 109 yards in the game before that. Mostly mid-teens in terms of the carries, and then 3 to 4 targets in most of their games. So you're talking about the potential for a 20-touch running back. It's just the Philly defense being really good against the run. 76 yards a game, 4 yards a carry, and 0.3 touchdowns a game. This is the most critical aspect of it, I think. Just 0.3 touchdowns a game allowed on the ground. That's really good. In terms of Cook himself, on the 12.4 carries a game, 62.5 yards, 5 yards per rush attempt. You know, kind of good meets good in terms of his 5 yards per rush attempt versus their 4 yards allowed per rush attempt. That'd be fun to watch. Latavius Murray does it with Murray with 2 R's. Not Kyler. Come on, help me out here. Carried the ball 10 times for 35 yards last week. Ran 11 routes, was untargeted. Not a big factor in the passing game. Draws a target here and there, catch here and there, but not a major factor for passing. But definitely red zone carries. Carry in every game except for 4 out of their 11 games. So 7 games with a red zone carry and multiple games with multiple red zone carries. In fact, out of the 7, only last game did he have less than 2 carries. Fewer than 2 carries. 9 for 68 and a touchdown in week 10. For 4,400, you can get away with that. 5,100 on FanDuel. It doesn't rank out great, but this isn't including him getting a touchdown, obviously. If this becomes 10 fantasy points even for 44.51, we're fine. Dart throw, touchdown dependent value dart throw. But maybe given the red zone equity, given the potential to just bust one in for the style of running back that he is, he's a more reasonable running back dart throw, even when I don't like to make those. He's more reasonable than a lot of other options, I think. I could probably prefer him to Kenny Gainwell. Gainwell, just 1 carry last week for a yard. Caught 1 pass for 4. 3 carries for 22. Did score a touchdown in week 9. Targeted once. Targeted 5 times for 30 yards. Caught all 5 for 30 yards in week 8, but carried the ball twice for -4. He has seen red zone carries. 3 in week 7, 1 in week 8, 2 in week 9, none in week 11. I just see a little bit more, slight favor for Latavius Murray, even against a good rush defense. Especially with the idea James Cook works you down, in between the 20s against this aggressively good rush defense. By the time they get down toward the goal line, he's shot for that drive, and Latavius Murray just steps in and gets the 2 carries and busts 1 in. You could see that. But this is really where the action is. Steph Diggs, wide receiver 2 by points, wide receiver 1 by points for A.J. Brown on DraftKings, 2-1 on the FanDuel slate. I love the idea of having these guys just dueling in a bunch of lineups. I do not care that they rank 30th and 39th on the DK board by value because they're extremely expensive. They're more affordable on FanDuel. A.J. Brown lands wide receiver 1 by points per dollar on FanDuel at 8,800. And Steph Diggs not far behind, wide receiver 10 by value. Big projection for Gabe Davis. Just wide receiver 22, 23 on DraftKings, 18-12 on FanDuel, though. 6,000. Speaking of 18-12, I saw Napoleon last night. Pretty good. I know some reviewers had issues with the pacing and issues with the historical inaccuracies in certain spots. I liked it. I found it to be exactly the movie I thought it was going to be. Davis going back in time. Clunker against the Jets. Put up nothing. Just a fat nothing burger. 2 catches for 56 against Denver in Week 10. Ran 41 routes and was targeted twice against Cincinnati in Week 9. Put up nothing. Week 8, 9 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Week 7, 1 catch, 6 yards, no touchdown. It's, since Week 5, almost been an every other game situation. Not that we're actually going by that, but if you wanted to, this would be your game. That is not why he projects well. He just projects well because he's got some touchdown upside. Scored in 4 straight games between weeks 2 and 5. A 90-yard game on the season, a 100-yard game on the season, an 87-yard game, a 9-catch game. That came in his 12-target game back in Week 8. Plenty of potential for Gabe Davis to succeed here. Dalton Kincaid took over the primary tight end role when Dawson Knox got hurt. Hasn't really looked back. Is Gabe a junior or a second or something? Oh, he's probably just Gabriel. Right. All this effort to see his 13.5 yard ADOT. Biggest downfield threat for them. Kincaid, tight end 3 and 7 on DraftKings, 3-2 on FanDuel. Bigger projection, obviously, on the points per dollar on the DraftKings slate, going up against the defense, allowing 6.1 yards per attempt, 248 yards per game. 2 touchdowns a game, also allowed by the Eagles. They're vulnerable to the pass. As much as the yards per attempt has improved a little bit, the overall total are around 250 yards a game, and the 2 touchdowns a game through the year, the 8.6 yard ADOT. That bodes well for this Buffalo passing attack. Bodes well for Josh Allen. Monster projection for him. QB, like I said, QB 1 and 2 by points. Just look at the points with these guys. You don't have to sweat the value. And they carry so much talent along for the ride that it's just a great team to go to. 2 solid options. That said, between the number 2 wide receivers, Devonta Smith is a much better player than Gabe Davis. Wide receiver 10 by points, 26 by value on DK, 10 and 6 on FanDuel because he only cost $7,400 over there. Monster potential. You know what else had monster potential? If you just 1 additional yard, maybe fall after you cross the goal line next time, Devonta, when you catch a monster pass that should have been a touchdown at the end of a game, that would have paid somebody $100,000 if you just managed to get the touchdown. Dick. No, instead we got to be on the 1 yard line and let Jalen Hurts score yet another rushing touchdown. Jerk. Wasn't his fault. Multiple 6-figure bad beats that week. That was rough. That was the same week as the Kawhi Leonard 2 free throws after the game was over. Painful. Not really, but fun to watch. What was I about to look up? Jalen Hurts' total rushing touchdowns on the season is now up to 9. 7 for Josh Allen. Plenty of individual upside for these guys. Just because of how good all their skill players are, I don't really like getting to either one of these quarterbacks in a naked sense. But if you wanted to, I don't really have issue with it. Just their raw scoring potential on their own is so good, and the rushing touchdowns that they provide is so strong that just going to one of these guys and then padding them out with value receivers from other spots, there's nothing wrong with that. It might even be a good play. We might see it when we check the Sims in a minute. Not sure. Haven't looked at him. Julio, just as a dart, 3,300. There's nothing wrong with Julio Jones for 3,300. 5,000 on FanDuel. There hasn't been a lot there. But you get him in the end zone, could pay off. He has not put up more than 10 yards. He has not put up more than 2 catches. He has not been targeted more than twice in his 4 games. He does have a touchdown. That's all he's got. It's pretty thin. Jack Stoll, the primary tight end in the absence of Dallas Goedert, and then Grant Calcaterra also banged up, so won't be in there to potentially take targets or routes or anything away. Stoll with a catch, 3 yards in the last game. We had Albert O, who had nothing in that game. Played 9 snaps. Stoll played 31 snaps, but looks like he was in there primarily as a blocker. I don't know that we go to the tight end position all that much here. They're cheap. They're easy enough to get to if you want them. There is upside for a touchdown for either one of these guys. Probably Stoll gets the first crack at it. But I think if I need to go to that level of value, I don't know. There might be a little bit more potential around OZ here. Not that he projects any better. But for the same price, I probably prefer to get that third wide receiver total dart throw play than use my 1 tight end play for that. But I think there's a little bit of scoring potential around the tight end spot. You're not looking at a lot of target potential. You're not looking at like Dallas Goedert level targeting. You're not looking at a lot of yardage potential. But if you get Jack Stoll into the end zone for $3,000, that's value. Kincaid's definitely the better tight end. Tight end 3.7 on DK, 3.2 on FanDuel. Since taking over as the primary, he's got, what's that, week 8, I want to say? Yeah, 57 snaps that week. So he's got 2 touchdowns, 26 catches in 4 games on 31 targets. A yard per target that has not been below the 6.6 that he put up last game. 9.3, 7.4, 8.5, 6.6. Very solid tight end option. Shakir, 4 targets last week on 31 routes. Put up 3 catches for 115 yards and a TD. If you can do that for me, I will absolutely take it for $3,600. 40th and 32nd on DraftKings, 37th and 40th on FanDuel. 10.4 yard ADOT, one of their downfield options. Deontay Hardy also has that downfield ability. He's been more limited in terms of the targets. Just 1 a game for the last 3 weeks. He did run more routes last time out. Played 14 snaps with the offense, 13 routes run, but just 1 target, and he didn't catch it. He hasn't caught a ball since week 7. That's concerning. That said, weeks 8, 9, 10, he ran 5, 3, and 3 routes. Just a home run threat. Just that 1 play for 80 yards and a touchdown monster play threat. That's really all you're getting there. Quentin Morris, I don't really think there's any need to play. 2 targets, caught 1 of them for 11 yards. If you get it in the end zone, obviously there's value. Had 1 target in the red zone last week, but didn't come away with a touchdown. Trent Sherfield's untargeted last week, hasn't caught a ball since week 9. Has 7 catches on the season. It's pretty top-heavy, but it's a pretty good trio at the top with a reasonable dart throw and a longer shot of a dart throw. But there's some viable options in this Buffalo passing game, obviously, against a team giving up a lot of touchdowns through the air. And that, my friends, is the slate. In a nutshell. What kind of a shell would have a nut? Austin Powers? Obscure Austin Powers quotes for $500? Let's take a quick look over at Ace Mind. I did run those sims. How about that? Just because I like you guys. I want to reward the 15 people who are still hanging out. Beantown and Mamba got a live back and forth going. Buffalo defense, Mamba says, it's an important point. I think Buffalo run defense is definitely skewed, having played whackbacks. The one time they played a good back was ATN, and he made them look silly. Okay, I'll take that note. Something worth looking into. Don't mind if I do. Not that I need any more reason to go to Swift. Just a solid running back. And, I mean, you can see a little bit of what you're talking about there in the 110 yards a game that they're allowing. I know you can't see my mouse, but it's over there on the right on the screen right now. The half a touchdown a game, I think, is the more important part. Or not more important, but the more concerning part. But like I said when I was talking about them, just on volume and the fact that they do allow yardage, I think Swift can get there. If you're at 80 yards on 15, 18 carries, 80 plus yards, and then you do or don't get the touchdown is where you win or lose. But I think, yeah, there is reasonable expectation of plenty of touches, approaching 20 touches and 75 plus yards. I don't know what his over-under for yardage is. I don't want to actually put a number on it, but yeah, there's potential there. Let's jump. Let me stop sharing this. Let me start sharing this one. And let's see. Oh no, DraftKings one didn't run. See this? Unrealistic settings or projections. Remember when I said I probably fucked something up? Seemed to have happened in the DraftKings one, which is where I was worried it would. See if I can put my finger on it real quick. It's probably the defenses. I just did it in a real hurry trying to get the defensive projections in here because of the stupid way that they don't use the city name. No, they're here. Damn, what a fuck up. This one actually looks okay. I'm going to try and rerun it real quick. I was actually going to empty or missing values detected. Oh, that's all right. That's annoying. I can rerun this and then talk about FanDuel, and this will be done by the time we need it. So this is how you actually run Ace Mind. I don't know if I've shown this before. We drag and drop a file to here. Oh, wait. I got to fix that file first. I left blank lines in the file that I uploaded before, and I guess it didn't give me that error, or I ignored that error the last time, which is my own fault. Kill those. Save this. All right, so this is where the projections go. You just drag and drop. Right? Bang. Projections upload. Move on. Hopefully they accept them. Yes. This is where you would drop lineups. If you had 5,000 lineups built, same process. You could just drag and drop. Like mine for FanDuel would be, or if I actually had it built, would be this, and it would go there. But I don't have any lineups built here. So that would be if you wanted to sim the lineups that you've spent hours making against a realistic pool. And then this comes into your various settings. So you can set the percent of the field using stacks. I like to go pretty high because I think stacking is common enough. Percent of the field using double stacks. I give it a little kick from where the guys have their defaults. Randomness, minimum lineup salary, I leave alone there. You just jump over to here. Let's see if it'll do it. It's probably not going to work just because there's probably something actually wrong with that file, but hopefully. Regardless, this is, again, this is my file, not an Ace Mind issue. At worst, we can look at some FanDuel. Hopefully that's not overly disappointing. Top of the board on FanDuel. Trevor Lawrence up there. You'll love that. Let me clean this view up a little bit here. I really hope that sim runs. Just all the more reason that we need those. Need an effort on behalf of fantasy players for United naming. Swift over 78.5 rushing plus receiving. Thank you for reminding me, T. I will parlay the over on all Swift props. I like that. Plus 100 for anytime touchdown? Yeah. All right. I kind of like those Swifty props, I got to say. It's a good find. A lot of the obvious up at the top in terms of the quarterbacks, the stacks that we're looking at here, a lot of the running back positions that we talked about. Ramondre and Jonathan Taylor all over the damn board. Look at how much Ramondre and Jonathan Taylor are on that board in the top handful of lineups. Some Gabe Davis hitting the board as an individual. No, actually those are in Josh Allen stacks. Always like the way the FanDuel lineups look on paper before you go in. A lot of Pacheco landing in these flex rolls. Jeez, a lot of Pacheco. Glad about the decisions I made seeing this in terms of the hand-built lineup I put together, I gotta say. Defense-wise, getting some Arizona. That's a weird one, but they're very cheap. Some solid ROI, some decent win rates. In terms of the individuals, this again is FanDuel. Jonathan Taylor, Isaiah Pacheco, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, A.J. Brown, your top 5 guys on the FanDuel slate by win rate. That said, that cuts from a 43.4 for Johnny Taylor down to, by the time you get to A.J. Brown, you're already at 23. Jonathan Taylor dominating the top of the board. 58% of the top 150 lineups. Pacheco right there with him, 50% roughly of the top 150 lineups, lands in 31% of winners. Both guys positive ROI marks as individuals is always good to see. Trey McBride, solid positive ROI mark. Ramondre, the best individual ROI player on the slate. Gabe Davis drawing a lot. Then you get to like the Derek Carr, Greg Dortch. A lot of this is to do with points potential for versus ownership. Among the popular high-end plays, Josh Allen, pretty solid positive ROI mark. Calvin as a good option to go along with Trevor Lawrence. Hey, look who it is. Patty Fryermuth making the board. Positive ROI. Lands in winners 4.6% of the time. Top ones 3.3%. I'll take it. Vindication at the end of the show for the Pat Fryermuth play. Let's see if we got anywhere on DK. Matt. Job rather listening for updates. I think I might have to apologize to you guys. I tell you what, I will rerun that, and if you're in the Discord, I'll drop the results into Discord for the DraftKings sim. I'll make that work. It's just because I did it in the last 5 minutes before the show, and there's something that I screwed up in that upload file. So give me a little bit. I'll rerun those. I'll drop them in Discord. They'll be in there tonight. You'll have them for the morning. What made me land on AceMind as opposed to other optimizer products? So I really only use AceMind for the sim rather than the optimizer. They have an optimizer. It's right here. But so far I'm using them really for the sim. And I like the guys who built it. They're independent. They're 2 guys that we, or at least some of us, and I think Beantown, you would know them. It's Blaine Youngworth and Chan Zero are their chat names. So, 2 good, sharp guys who built a really good tool that I like a lot, that has all the bells and whistles and does everything that the other places that have, well, I won't get into whose code looks like whose. Oh, did I get into it? Shit, I didn't mean to say that. But yeah, there's a good reason in my mind to support these guys, and we've got, I wouldn't say a partnership by any means, because there's no financial interest for me, promoting their site or anything like that, but we're a little bit connected. We're cross-promoting one another for now and chatting behind the scenes. So but ultimately, Beantown, I just really like the tool, and I've seen some early success since I started using it, and I needed something faster than my old clunky Excel sim that I used to run, because that thing took, for football, to do 10,000 sims, took about an hour. This one, I can do 50,000 sims of 170,000 or whatever the pool is lineups in about a minute. And then you get, even if your goal is just to get, I need a really big pool of lineups really quickly that I can take and drop into a sorting tool or something, or you have all those results with the ROI and everything from the sim. Even if the result is just to get a lot of lineups quickly, this is a great tool for that. So, yeah, I think there's a really good reason to use them. In terms of what their pricing looks like, their pricing is cheap. Or affordable, inexpensive, not cheap. You don't say cheap in a sales kind of a sense. Not that I'm selling anything to anybody. But they're a very affordable product, I think, comparative to what I've heard some of the other places are charging. And again, they just do all those same functions. And they've got a pretty slick approach to it. They're immediately available. Just because I know them, a little bit, like online know. Even for the people who they don't know that are just, paying customers or whatever, if you hop into their Discord, you see just a run of people like, hey, I've got a question about, and either Blaine or Chan is on, basically, like me, high availability, let's put it that way. And they just answer questions like that. If you've got an issue or something is going a little funky tech-wise, like that, they're answering you, they're on it. So even just that has value to me. But yeah, overall, I just want to support these guys. I think they're good. What is my projection on old Patty the Friar Mouth? It was good. What was it? Um, 6.62 FanDuel points or 8.41 DraftKings points for your 2,900 on DraftKings. Looks like a monster value play to me on DraftKings. Beantown just hand builds a lineup each week. So yeah, all right. So all of this is for people who build not necessarily 150, but it's mostly geared toward 150 lineup builders. But I don't know that there's any real need to go to this level of tools for building one lineup, for building 5 lineups. Even if you were a 20 maxer, that's probably where I would want to at least have like some kind of a support of, maybe you don't run the tools yourself, but you've got access to, I'm sure like Stochastic still has like the boom bust tool and stuff like that. So you want to have some kind of idea of percentages and how things fit together once you're at the point where you're building 20. Hand building 1, I think, this would be massive overkill. Even something like Ace Mind would be overkill. You don't need to sim 176,000 lineups to get down to hand building 1. And honestly, if you're hand building, that kind of takes the fun out of it. I want to get, I've been for every week of the season, I run my 150 in the main tournament, and then I have one that I hand built that goes into some single entries, that goes into some higher dollar buy-ins. And that's my favorite lineup every week. That's always the one that's actually fun to build and you sit there and think about. Done well with it, too. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go nuts with tools if you're just building one a week. So with that said, guys, again, apologies that I screwed up something here. Yeah, it's just that I fucked that up. It pisses me off. There's zero chance I can get it to work right now, though. Apologies, gang, for the DK folks that didn't get to see their sims. But again, if you're in the Discord, if you're not in the Discord, it's linked from the website, or just hit me up on Twitter or whatever, and I'll get it for you. But yeah, hop in the Discord, and I'll drop the DraftKings sims in there a little bit later on. How do I feel about Taysom Hill? We talked about him during the New Orleans part of the show. I think there's major upside there. It would probably depend on his ownership, Mamba. I was wrestling with that spot in my hand-built lineup. That is right now a placeholder. It's not necessarily the one that goes into those single entries. And I had him in at one point. And I like the ceiling, obviously. Like the ceiling, hate the floor. And we get a lot of floor games in Taysom Hill. We had that great 3-game stretch where he was competitive with Kelsey every week for the top overall scoring tight end. There's major ceiling there. So if he's not crazy popular, it's fine. If he gets a lot of ownership or even a decent amount of ownership, and I know that I said I don't really care as much about individual ownership, but on a high ceiling, big floor play, it does get a little bit more important. So I don't love, I would say, the Taysom Hill play, and I actually think that Juwan Johnson is a little bit sneaky behind him as the actual tight end. So, on the board, but not a priority. Let's put it that way. Sounds like he would be friends with Gundacker, says Mamba. I'm friends with Gundacker. I haven't talked to Gun in a little bit. I got to catch up with him. We had talked about doing some stuff in an ongoing sense, and I know he's been busy with his wrestling, and I think he was helping his sister with her apothecary store, and just seems like he's living a really good life out there, too. If you've been following his Twitter handle, just, positive dude. I like Gun a lot. Josh Gillen, where do I find out which wide receivers crush versus man and versus zone? Not on this show, Josh. That's not something I have tracked. There are good sources of that. I'll give you one, actually. Over on Fantasy Pros, in the article that that guy Zach Evans writes, that I haven't actually caught up with in a few weeks, but the beginning of the season, he really helped me find my footing in terms of just catching up on some of these player notes and what those guys do. That dude gets pretty deep into a lot of those type of stats. So if that's what you're looking for, I think that's a good source of it. That said, like if you're looking for it just on a statistical board, probably like PFF or somebody like that would probably have it. Not really sure. Kincaid versus Taysom. I like Kincaid better. Probably will be the more popular play, but I think better, similar-ish ceiling. Taysom's probably got a little bit of a bigger ceiling, but a much bigger basement. Yeah, Josh, the article specifically that I am referring to over on Pros is Derek Brown. I think I said Zach Evans. I meant Derek Brown. He writes the primer article every week. I'll drop it into my chat here and link it because, like I said, I do at least weeks 1 through like 8. I was reading that every week, and I think it's very good for season long. He's a little bit more high level focus. Like he'll give you the rundown on the quarterback, the top running back, top 2 receivers, and then move on. He's not necessarily a complete lunatic, but he gets deep into a lot of those verse defense types, and a lot of advanced statistics as well. He's big on like first read percentages and a lot of stuff like that. So a lot of really useful nuggets in there. Mamba says, I use fantasy points at Josh Gill. I'm sorry if they're not the preferred band. What are we talking about? Oh, Fantasy Pros. I love Fantasy Pros for season-long leagues. I've been using them for years. Their tools are really good. Their draft tools are good. They have industry aggregate projections from a lot of sources that you can kind of put together and really look at. So really, really strong side. I like those guys a lot. Anyway, fellas, 11:38, 3.5 hour show, one of our longer ones. Had a couple 4-hour ones early, but this is one of our longer ones since we've really found our pace on a shorter slate too. In a per game sense, this is a high minutes per game show. This was a lot of fun though. Felt like we covered a lot of good ground. With that, I'm going to wish you guys good luck. I'm going to take a little break, maybe have some leftover turkey, and then I'm going to catch back up, update projections, update the groups article. I'm going to write the above below article. I'm going to update all the rankings. I'll drop the DK sim results into the Discord so you guys can have a feel for that. Yeah, good luck out there, gang. Somebody go win something in week 12. I will see you guys on, I'm going to say Monday. Definitely going to be a Monday. But check out the site tomorrow. Obviously, all this stuff will be updated. NBA will be up. And then Sunday Night Football, I'll make sure we have projections up. So that's it, guys. I will see you on Monday. Good luck.